Good evening. This is the Auburn Town Finance Committee. Today is March 25th. It is 5:30 PM. Call the meeting to order. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, dial 1-408-650-3123 and use access code 983-263-437. Or the public can join via computer at meet.goto.com/Auburn Select Board Room. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Is anyone else present recording the meeting? No. Okay, everyone is present physically with us this evening, so we do not need to do any sort of roll calls. First on our agenda for this evening is we have transfers. We have one transfer to review. It is from DDIS Animal Control.
Through the chair, if I can make a motion to take three of these as one.
We have a motion to take the three going to the same account as one, and a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, I'll read them off. First one is from the conference travel account. Amount requested $300 going to kennel maintenance. Reason given to provide internet service at the kennel for animal control. Next one from the travel account. Amount requested $200. Also going to kennel maintenance. And last one from the legal notices planning account. Amount requested $568. Also for kennel maintenance. Hello, I didn't see you over there.
Hey, good evening.
Even with those bright colors, you're second.
You can't miss me today.
Good evening. Did you want?
Good evening. Yes, thank you for the opportunity. So this request before you is for having internet service put at the animal kennel. The reason for it is with the weather events that have happened over this past year and actually last year, we had the heat actually go out at the kennel during some extreme weather, specifically one of the storms that we had in the past, I'm going to say in the past 2 months, month and a half. And what happened is our animal control officer was aware and was kind of keeping track, and went down to check on the heat because she was concerned with the temperatures dropping, and we actually had the heat go out. That happened recently, so for this heating season, but then she also identified that it happened last heating season as well. So 2 times that happened is obviously just 2 times too many. It was caught in enough time, but we don't want there to be problems. So by having the internet, we're able to have, it's like a temperature sensor that's connected to the internet. So it will alert, our animal control officer if the temperature is going too low or too high. So in order for that to work, we have to have internet, and currently we don't have internet there. So that's the reason for the request.
Is this just a one-time thing for hardware and wiring to connect to the other building?
Sure, thank you. So this is a setup to get that in place. It will require internet service going forward. We have talked to the IT department, and they're aware of it, they're comfortable with it, and they can take that on.
Any other questions? Motion to approve? A motion to approve and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you so much.
Another transfer was only $200, so it was under the 50 and was approved by the CFO. Okay, first on our budgets for this evening is the town clerk's budget. Mr. Town Clerk was ready.
Good evening. Okay, so I'm going to do the town clerk's office and the election in one presentation instead of giving you
So
two
we'll
separate.
save questions for the.
Got it. Yep.
Thank you.
So you do know I do have some updated numbers for you than what I gave you guys on Monday. Okay, and it kind of shows you how much we deal with on a daily basis. Okay, so for the town clerk's office, our daily duties consists of, these are just a few of the things that we deal with. We deal with vital records, business certificates, dog licenses, record keeping, public records requests, the no soliciting sign up that we just did for the new bylaw, boards and committees, public hearing notices, which includes the agendas, which also includes agendas and minutes, voter registrations, and then our elections. Okay, so for vital records consists of birth certificates, marriage intentions, marriage certificates, and death certificates. So in 2025, we had 140 births. We had 93 marriage intentions, which is when a couple comes in and states that they want to get married. They have 3 forms that they have to fill out. We have to verify certain information, that their age, because as of, in Massachusetts, they can no longer get married if they're under the age of 18, even with a parent's consent. And then we have to verify that if they've gotten a divorce, we need to see their divorce decrees. Okay. So once they fill that paperwork out, there's a 3-day hold on it, then they have to come back in and they can pick up their license. Okay, and they take that to when they want to get married. From that, we had 89 of them returned it as of that they got married. 4 of them changed their mind and did not get married, but we still needed to do the paperwork ahead of time. We had 269 deaths last year. Out of the 269, we had 142 that had passed away in Auburn. Okay, so there's extra work that we have to do for that. The birth certificates, marriage certificates, death certificates, and burial permits, we collect $10 a piece for those. We sold 2,433 of them. Okay. For marriage intentions, those are $40 a piece. Okay. This year, so far, we've had 35 deaths, 13 marriage intentions, 12 marriages, and 58 deaths. So just since Monday, we've had an added 6. Between yesterday and today, we've had an extra 6 of them. Out of that 6, 3 of them had passed away in town. So far, as it stands right now, we've sold 569 of them. Okay, so in 2 days, we've sold another 30. Next is business certificates. Oh, I sent the wrong one. Sorry about that. So as it stands right now, we have 629 business certificates in town. Last year, we had 76 new businesses. We had 61 of renewed. Out of all of that, out of the 629, we had 3 businesses had closed. Okay, this year we have 11 new ones, 11 new businesses so far, and 15 have renewed. For business certificates, they're $60 a piece, and they're good for 4 years. Dog licenses are one of our fun topics. Okay, so for dog, we manage all of the rabies for the dogs that are in town. Whenever they go to a vet and they get their rabies, we're emailed or mailed or even faxed their rabies certificates. They do them on a monthly basis, and it's usually the previous month we get them. So we get a very large number all at the same time. In 2025, we had 215 new dogs. And in 2025, we also had rabies, dogs for rabies that were not licensed in a 3-year period. There was 49 of them. Okay? So for those, what we've done is we have created a spreadsheet. Whenever we get rabies in, we'll go through the system. If they're not in the system, we put them into a spreadsheet. Either it's a new dog because we can't find it in the dog in the old system, we'll put them in that spreadsheet. If they are in the old system, we put it in a different spreadsheet. The dog office will send out letters accordingly once a month to let them know that we know you have a dog. You've got to try to come in and get these dogs licensed. For 2026, so far we have 38 new dogs and 8 dogs that are in the old system but not in the new system, so they haven't been licensed in 3 years. 2025, for licensed dogs, we did 2,058. We raised $39,367. For 2026, as of Monday afternoon when I did that, it was 1,195. We're up to 1,233. So we've pulled in so far $17,875. We do have, myself and Tanya, the dog officer, came up with an idea, and it seems to be a pretty good hit so far. We're doing a raffle. So everybody that licensed their dog within the licensing period, which ends next Tuesday, they are entered into a raffle. They're given a raffle ticket. As long as they're not a town employee, we will pull the raffle on April 6th. It will be televised, and the first prize winner will win a 2027 tag, and then second and third prize will be toys or treats. A lot of people seem to like that. They don't have to pay extra for it. They just get entered into it. We're also doing a rabies clinic on April 12th. So anybody that has not licensed their dog yet can still license their dog and not get the $10 late fee. Let's see. So we have about a little over 3,000 dogs in town. There's quite a bit that's not licensed, but we'll get there. As it stands right now, we've had 121 people have applied for a dog license, but has not completed the application process yet. So record keeper, we manage records that is down in the vault that goes back to 1778. Okay, the vault is kept at, we have a dehumidifier that's downstairs that runs 24/7 to make sure that there's no humidity in that room to destroy any of the records. The records are kept either hard covers, some of them are just paper in boxes, like the minutes and stuff like that. And then other stuff like the vital records are kept in a cabinet. Public records request, we oversee all of the public records requests that's made for the town. For 2025, we had 254 records requests that were made. 57 of them were ours. While people make these requests, we keep track of them through a database, and we make sure if we notice that nothing is closed or if one's not closed, we'll follow up with the department, see if they've answered them, find out what their answer was, and close it out. So far this year, not including the ones that we've just recently got today and yesterday, we've gotten 89, and 15 of them are for the town clerk's office. For the no soliciting, from January to right now, we're actually up to 445 of them. It's slowed down a little bit, but we're still getting requests on a daily basis for this. Boards and committees. We currently have 25 boards and committees. We keep track of all of the past and present members. One of the reasons why we keep track of this is we also are the ones responsible for the board and committee members, along with employees, for the annual town report. We also make sure that everybody has completed the state ethics. Public hearing notices, minutes, agendas and minutes. We have over 30 boards and committees. This includes subcommittees. We post the agendas and minutes for all of those. Public hearing notices, we also do. The biggest ones that we post for public hearing notices are conservation, zoning, and planning board. Those are our three largest ones. So for public hearing notices, last year we posted 48 of them. This year so far we've posted 9. Agendas for 2025, we've posted 327 agendas. This year so far, we're going to be over. Last year, we've posted 110 of them so far this year. Like I said, we also do the minutes for each of those. We keep track of them. If we don't get them, we try to send an email out to each of those boards stating that you're missing those minutes. We also are responsible for reserving the rooms for all of the meetings, whether they're internal or public meetings. Voter registration. So as of December 31st of 2025, we had 13,512 registered voters. For the May 2025 election, we had 2,120 people come out and vote. This changes on a daily basis. People that move, people that are move into town, and people that are moving out of town. That's a daily thing that we have to keep track of. As of this past Monday, we had 13,706 registered voters. We have to, in December of every year, we have to send out the census, as you guys have seen, the street listing. We have to send that out to every household. We sent out over 8,000, I can't remember exactly the number, but over 8,000 of them this past December for the census. We get all of those back. If we don't receive them back by June, by state law, I have to send every registered voter that's in that household a notice stating that they are made inactive as a registered voter. Doesn't mean that you can't vote. It just means you need to prove that you still live in town. Okay? So we have to send those out. We get those back. We have to log all of this stuff. So this is this takes a very big chunk of our time. For elections, last year we only had one election. That was the annual town election in May 20th of 25. This year we have 3. We have the annual town election on May 19th. We have the state primary on September 1st. And then we have the state election on November 3rd. For these elections, for the town election, we usually have about 30 election workers. They're split up between the precincts. And then on top of that, we also have 2 wardens. They oversee the majority of things. If anybody in the precincts have any issues, they're to speak with one of the wardens. For the state elections, we use 40 plus election workers. Okay, the school does like to have their students from the government class come in and volunteer, which is a huge help. So that's about it. so that way. You're welcome. Sorry, my nerves are.
No, that's okay. You did a great job. So we'll start with the town clerk's budget. Anything you want to highlight for us?
So we've got one new thing on the budget for this year. It's the contracted services. It's the $3,219. That is for the program that we use for the clickers at town meeting. I was unaware that the contract was running out and runs out this year, during this current fiscal year. So I had reached out to them and said, hey, I was just made aware by IT that the contract is about to run out. And they had stated that if I had signed up with them, they would extend our contract until August. So that way, because I told them, I says, our new fiscal year doesn't start until July. So they said if we signed up with them, then they would extend it till August. And then we would be covered and we could go from there.
This is a 5-year contract, or?
It is, I went with what was already established beforehand. I was unaware that we were not supposed to do that. Like I said, I just went off of what the last town clerk had, because she set this up in 2020. So I just went off of what they already had in file. And it actually saves us dramatically. For 1 year, it's a little over $1,000 for 1 year.
Yeah, it's a great system.
Yeah.
So it's not replacing the current clickers, though? This is just a service?
Yeah, it's just service.
I imagine at the end of this 5 years, we'd probably be looking to, there would be a hardware, there would probably be a cost. I can't imagine them getting the technology, drastically change in 5 years.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it would. They did say that the programming that we currently have in play was no longer, so it wouldn't work anymore. So where we re-upped, they had already sent us the new program.
Okay.
And IT is working on getting that set up for us.
Do we own clickers?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, she bought them outright.
Any other budget questions, Patrick?
I have a couple, but the one at the moment is on your summary. Thank you very much. On the fourth paragraph down where it suggests the budget increases necessary to address contractual obligations. I take it that in the next paragraph, it says this, or the one prior says, the responsibilities of the town clerk's office to continue to expand and increase, and I'm sure with your staff. Is the following paragraph an adjustment to correct all of that? Have you found a salary disparity in relation to the expectations of the department?
So we came into an,
And what some of the other departments?
yes, so Melinda has been there, the principal clerk. She's been there for 25 years now. She is at the top of the contract. She's at the highest rate. So when they redid the contract, it jumped her significantly, which next year, if my assistant only got the 2% and then the 1% COLA, there's only a $300 difference between the two of them. And Wendy's responsibilities are significantly higher than Melinda's.
That's why I raised the question the way that I did. It's really to align your staff with the appropriate responsibilities.
Yes. Yep.
Any other questions? Mine's going to be relative to, is your training, your travel conference education, certainly the roles of the clerk's office in education and public records and the legal responsibilities that could put the town, in a precarious situation. Is that enough in training for professional conferences and things of that nature. I see it actually goes down a little bit from,
I did drop it down a little bit. So the last 3 years, I have gone to a class in New Hampshire. And it's a 3-year program. Like I said, I graduated this year. No, wait, sorry, 2025. I graduated in 2025. Wendy's not going this year because it's right after she's getting married.
okay.
So therefore, she didn't want to go right then. I will be attending for the academy, but I won a free scholarship. So I will be going, but we're not paying for it. Okay.
I just want to make sure you had enough there to
Yep.
ensure all your certifications and whatnot.
On your slide with dog licensing,
Yes.
it almost looks like you were losing 30 to 35% of the revenue. And the reason why I ask is because you said that you did 2,058 and you raised almost 40 grand. And that was in 2025. And so when you get to 2026, you're just at about 2,000, which puts you at the same. So I would think in your statement when you said there's about 3,000 dogs in town, that if you do the math, that's 30% of 2 to 3,000. So I'm just curious. I'm seeing that we don't really enforce the 10% late fee, but when I look at the volume of dollars that we're leaving on the table, is just the town have some kind of mechanism in place during that period of time when people aren't licensed to capture some of that?
When they're not licensed?
Right, but you know they're there.
Yes. So we do keep in contact with the dog office. They do send out letters. The only thing that they don't do is hand out citations, which would kind of get their attention, I think, a little bit more. But
Still the act of collecting.
yes, oh yeah, we
Right.
collect throughout the year. We don't, it's past the deadline, I can't take it. We still collect throughout the year, okay? We have had a lot of people that have not licensed in the past, has licensed, and I think some people are, how do I want to put this? Some people are a little bit more active now on getting them licensed on time. So the hard part is that when people license on time, if they licensed last year, but didn't license the year before that, last year they would have been charged a $35 or a $30 late fee for unlicensing. But they're licensing now, so you're not collecting that $30 of late fees. Okay, so some people are licensing on time now, so we're not getting those late fees.
And I follow what you're saying is
Yep.
it's a work in progress.
It is, yes.
And I understand it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My other question, since we're with the Ginger on licensing, permitting, and through the chair to the town CFO, in our packet were license and fees, and I'm just curious, because we're on dog licensing, but the local receipts analysis shows business permits, licenses, and so forth. The dog fees and so forth, this is only business related. So these fees for dog licensing and so forth aren't carried in this schedule?
Correct, they go in a special revenue fund, and then we vote to offset some of that money against the budget on an annual basis.
Is there a reason, I don't know if it's in the bylaws, is there a reason why we, have like a 4-year business license, but a 1-year dog license?
Business license is by the state. Business certificates, they're not licenses. They're business certificates, that's by the state.
But we could conceivably do like a 4-year dog license for a 5-year?
That would be very difficult because we base our dog licenses when we issue them if their rabies are current. If you make your now dog license a longer time span, we can't control if a dog has the rabies or not.
Rabies is a yearly shot.
It's, for a new dog, it's a yearly shot, and then after that, it's a 3-year shot. So, and when we order our tags, I order our tags in based off of how many dogs we have. Now, if you take that span and the yearly wise, you extend it, it's going to be very hard for us to be able to keep track of how many tags I need to order on a yearly basis.
Okay.
Any other questions on clerk's budget?
Motion to recommend?
There's a motion to recommend in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. And we'll move on to the elections office budget. You want to comment for us, Treasurer, on this one?
So for this one, even though we have 3 elections this year, I did not increase the supply account. I increased the salary or the pay for the election workers, but I did not increase the supply amount because I have $17,000 from the state for a past reimbursement for early voting and the mail-in ballots. So they reimbursed, so I have that, so I figured I'd try to use that up before asking you guys for some more money.
Just through the chair to Karen, that we're good to use that in FY27, no issues?
Yes, that's
Okay. I figured, but it's nice to ask.
Yeah, it's already allocated for us, and as long as I'm using it for elections,
Additional questions on this one?
Motion to recommend?
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. I think we're good. You don't have anything CIP related for? No. Very good. Thank you.
thank you.
Town hall budget is 192.
Actually, through the chair, if I could, the town clerk does have a CIP book and map repairs for fiscal year 2027. So before you go.
We're so close.
And it's also in 28 as well,
Oh, okay.
so just a year.
Okay. So this money is to fix any of the old books that are downstairs. Like I said, we have books downstairs from the 1778. So it's to repair some of those old books, some of the bindings going. So they'll take that, they'll pull the book apart. Some of them are actually used horse glue to put it together. So they actually have to remove that glue and rebind the whole book. So
Thank you.
anybody ever wants to take a tour, just let me know.
Thank you. Good evening. The town hall.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I don't have a nice presentation like Ginger. These 2 next budgets are not as fun as previous departments. We have one, which is the town hall budget, which is basically the operations within town hall, equipment maintenance, equipment rental, miscellaneous supplies. They are pretty standard in their expenses. I was able to reduce them by just a 3%, which is just $2,000, based on prior year expenditures. These are the types of things that like include the elevator maintenance contract, copier maintenance, printer maintenance. So they're pretty much set in stone. There's a little bit of flexibility just in case of price increases. But that is, it's not as much fun as maybe police or fire. But it is definitely a necessity, and it's managed from my office, but typically expended through DPW, who maintains the building.
I just want to say through the chair that we should never diminish how fun town hall is. Just as exciting as the fire station.
Town hall
the police
is
station.
fun, but this budget, maybe not so much. There's just,
I am disappointed about the lack of PowerPoint, but
I have to say, Trevor, I was looking to see how to make a PowerPoint from this, and I just,
Picture of town hall.
Copiers.
I was thinking,
printer copy.
I was thinking
Elevators.
maybe a pie chart and break out the I don't know. It was just,
we got a whole year to figure it out, you know?
exactly.
Always next year.
Sometimes
Exactly.
less is more, so.
Yeah, sometimes less is more in this particular case.
Any questions on this one?
Motion to recommend?
A motion and a second to recommend this budget. All in favor? Aye. On to general services, 199.
Thank you, through the chair. This one's a little bit more interesting because it covers all the electricity, all the telephone, some advertising, postage, town report for the whole town of Auburn. This is another one that's specifically from my office, from the town manager's office, but covers expenses through the whole town. One of the things of point that is important to mention to the board, our insurance costs have been increasing extremely high every single year. As you know, I think you've probably had to do transfers in the past. I have done outreach to different companies. We have received quotes. We are looking at every piece of equipment that's being insured, some of which don't need to be insured because they don't have a lot of value, and we're making some changes. So I'm happy to say this year, the cost is actually going down from the fiscal year 26 adjusted amount. That's not always going to happen, but it's just re-looking at insurance. And insurance is much like when you are, I don't know if people here do it, but I do it at home all the time. Every time I get my car insurance bill, I mark it and I go look and see who's going to give me a better rate. I do the same thing here. So there was no big increase in that line item, and it's a year-long process that I work with the insurance companies. And this includes liability insurance, it includes car insurance, it includes building insurance. So there's a lot of variables in this area that we monitor very closely. So that is really the highlight of this budget.
I noticed electricity staying relatively consistent from last year, come down a little bit, and how? Because I don't know about you guys, but my electricity bills are going up like crazy. So I'm curious how we came up with, I guess, the idea that can stay even. Is that something we have contracted? Is that?
Yes, it is. It's contracted and we have a lower rate, and it's something that we watch for several months before we tie in. We're actually starting the process now. It takes several months before we tie in, and we work with a consultant that gives us the rates, and that's the way we can do it. So it's an area that we're not seeing huge increases on, even though we are at home.
Yeah, I know, like in a residential space, like, I know
Absolutely.
it's going up a lot. So I was just curious with that. And not so much a question for now, but maybe in the future it might be helpful to see on the insurance, to see a breakdown of where that cost goes across different departments. If that's covering, you're saying like auto for, I'm assuming like our entire fleet of service vehicles and cruisers and other things, like it might be helpful to just get a visual on how that gets allocated to.
Sure, I know I can break it out by area, like all the automobiles
Yeah.
and all the buildings. I will see, I do have the analysis of the vehicle and the VIN and the department, so we could do a further breakdown in my office. I know Caitlin did a lot of work on that to establish a spreadsheet, so we could definitely do that and pull it out.
Yeah, I mean, nothing too crazy, but just to, I don't know, I think it might just be helpful to see.
It is
some of
very
that-
helpful.
Some of that goes, and just when we're thinking about different departments, like, rather than bucketing it all here, if a lot of it's going on other, if it's actually a part of other departments, that might be helpful for us to see, even if it's just a very like broad stroke allocation of, 400,000 of it goes to
Right.
DPW.
Yeah, you'll see the majority, police, fire, and DPW with our vehicles in particular. And those fluctuate year to year based on the mileage of the vehicles and the condition of the vehicles, which we
Yep.
track as well.
Yeah.
So we can do that.
Thank you. On the electricity as well, the new energy person we have, I take it they're playing a role in keeping this rate as close to keeping it low.
They are. It's, last year I had to do it myself, and it's not my area of expertise, so I had a little bit of a learning curve, but it's nice to have Juniper here that's able to monitor. What happens is they contact us, and they're like, the rate just dropped here on this company, and you want to tie in. And if I'm in a meeting, 2 sets of eyes are better than 1. So, and that also sets it for the town, so it's just, it's,
So it's already at work for itself with them being in place.
it is.
And also, just through the board, or through the chair, also, I just want to point out that not only has the rate come down, but I believe the town makes a one-time premium payment, and because it's a prompt pay full payment, we save on that as well.
Absolutely.
So when we get it, there could be as much as a 10% saving. So if you even add 10% more to that line, that's probably what the insurance is, but we're paying less because we're paying it in full at the beginning of the plan year. It's to the CFO, through the chair. Right.
I remember, yes, there's absolutely a deduction if we pay it upfront. I don't remember the amount off the top of my head. I'd have to look at the.
Sometimes it's as significant as 5 or 10%, and I think
Absolutely, yes.
that's why I'm making sure that, not making sure, I'm asking the question to enlighten that, we can get that kind of a savings if we make a prompt pay, beginning of the year payment rather than interest with installment.
And in addition to that, we also revisit the policy. If there's vehicles that come off our line, if there's an accident, if there's any changes, if there's vehicles that go on, or if there's something going on in the buildings, it is just like a home insurance policy. So it's the same
They get
exact thing. It's
adjusted
just
on and
really
off.
big.
You're not paying for the whole year.
Exactly.
They're getting adjusted on and off. Great.
Yes.
Is there any other department that has, like to your question about having a breakdown of what this covers, there's no other department that has a portion of insurance? Do the fire and police have a portion of insurance in their budget? I can't remember the right. This covers everything.
It does. Yes.
My question is relative to the gas, oil, diesel line. Is that fuel for the entire town?
It is.
It doesn't seem, I thought it would have been higher than that amount. And so my follow-up question is that going to be enough based on what's rising fuel costs?
Well, just to clarify, that's gas and diesel,
Yes.
just those two?
Yes.
Not like natural gas, just regular unleaded gas and diesel?
Gasoline, yeah.
Gasoline, yeah,
So it's gasoline largely through I think you use one station in town, right, that bills?
just Shell?
Yes.
Yes, yep. And we do get some rebates on that for Shell.
Okay,
Yes.
that was the other part.
Yep.
Shopping around, does one provide incentives to use that through Shell?
Yes.
Any concerns? Obviously, we're all watching the news on a daily basis that fuel costs are going up and up and up.
So,
I'm sorry, I'm just being smart.
through the chair, Trevor's right, no. Through the chair, this was obviously done a couple months ago before the world changed a bit. It is something that we'll continue to monitor. We're looking at this. We're also looking at our solid waste removal contract that you guys had approved last week. We might come back next week with a slight adjustment. We're meeting with them regarding their whole contract in addition to the diesel part. So you may see us again before you do a final vote of everything, to address just a couple of needs, and this would be one of them.
I was told that it was going to be a very short-term problem, so that's what the news said.
That's what it says.
The news is always.
So, fingers crossed.
I heard the opposite.
They always tell the truth. I'm sorry, that's.
Any additional questions on the general services budget? Motion to recommend general services, $1,761,402. Do we have a second? Trevor's seconded the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Number 910, pensions and benefits.
It's my favorite.
Okay, this is a great topic. I didn't do any special presentation for this one either, because this one is what it is. We had a lot of work on our health insurance this year. We were looking at a 14% increase across the board, and that's with our consultants. Most municipalities are going through it, and you're going to see it all as we, go into the next fiscal year in our own premiums that we're going to have to pay. What we did this year is we instituted I think it's 2 school pay periods, 4 town pay periods for a premium holiday. We have a very healthy trust fund, so we're able to do that this year. The trust fund is still healthy after, but I still want to keep an eye on it. It's not going to be an unlimited funding source, but it helps bring the cost down. I believe it's more of a close to 8% now. Increase. But it's still very high. And I'm working very closely with the consultant who monitors all of our claims data. This is based on actual claims data of town of Auburn employees and retirees. So when they go out to bid, which I've asked them to do, they take the claims data, for instance, 50 MRIs for whatever, and they send it to insurance companies, and insurance companies send back how much that would cost us if we went with them. So a lot of it is based on the insurance company relationships with the hospitals and the providers. So that's when that's really important. We're still out to bid. One of our providers, I think I said this in the beginning, one of our providers is looking for a 42% increase, and it's just not manageable. We will do everything in our power to bring that down. There are multiple ways of doing it. It's very strategic, and that's why we have a consultant, because it's really a full-time job to manage health insurance and to manage a self-insured program, so I'm grateful I have them. But it is something that most likely next year I'll have to go to the IAC. I might have to do plan design changes, and I might need to implement those into collective bargaining agreements going forward. We cannot sustain increases like this. The disappointing part is not only are the prices going up, but they're reducing benefits in some ways. Like for GLP-1s, I think you may have seen this on the news, there's a very good chance they're going to remove it completely from our formulary. Completely, and there will be no choice. So the people that have lost weight, that their blood pressure is now under control and their A1C is under control, they're not going to be able to get that drug because it will not be able to be insured if that's the case. And that's what a lot of municipalities are looking at right now. We have not gotten to that stage yet. But there's a very good chance that will happen for the next fiscal year for the town of Auburn. The only light at the end of that tunnel is supply and demand. If everyone stops covering it, if all these insurance companies drop it, the price of the product will probably go down and it will end up coming back eventually. But right now, it's pretty difficult for the people that do use the GLP-1s to not have access to that, and that's a good chance in July, despite the increase of 14%.
Questions, discussion, Patrick?
Through the chair, I just want to compliment our town manager, Dory, as someone who wore this hat in a prior career a couple of times, not only in private but public. I want to commend you on your due diligence. Today, we have a self-insured plan that has multiple people or multiple parties that have input into it. And diligence is critical because you know that even if we do our best job and Karen crunches the numbers perfectly and you've got the right data, one of those third parties can make a mistake. So it's imperative that we stay on top of it. And I know the experience that you bring in your position merits you catching things that some of these carriers or third-party people may not see. So I just want to say that on top of it, to have gone from 14 to 8% is commendable. I know when it went before the selectmen a little while ago, we were looking at a larger increase, and just the efforts you've made to get it down, and then to know that, like to your point with the expense that we see, we both know, or we all know, we can't sustain that. So I just wanted to take a minute after you spoke to tell you that I just think you've delivered a great. You not only told us about the moment, but what your hopes are for the future, and we have to think that way. insurance because it's just becoming a big beast.
It is, it's volatile. It's always been volatile. I just feel like this year.
More so
is-
now than.
Yeah, particularly volatile. But I thank you for that.
Just, my comment or question, I guess, is both. I've always understood that there's the salaries that are listed for people on each of the departmental budgets, right? So, but this budget is an additional cost on each one of those employees. Am I phrasing that correctly? So that the health insurance costs that are listed here, the $9.6 million, is relative to how many employees we have in that system. If we have, how many town employees on our group insurance?
So it's retirees and town employees. So yes.
And it's catastrophic, isn't it? This is all insurance.
Yes,
There's
it's-
multiple layers.
Yes,
So it's catastrophic, isn't it?
yes. Yeah, that's another whole aspect of
Right.
this, of it's a
Self-insurance.
reinsurance. It's a reinsurance, and we do have people that are hitting the benchmark of reinsurance so basically, there's some people on our plan that the town has to pick up over a certain amount, or insurance will kick in, like it's almost like a separate insurance plan. So we'll only pay up to a certain amount and then they'll kick in. But they have to get to a pretty high amount before that happens. And those are the cancer patients, and those are the ones that have a lot of comorbidities, or in some cases, children. That is also one that is volatile that we watch often. There's usually, I think this year, we had a lot of people on the list that are on the top 10. They're just very expensive patients. So volatile is the word.
I guess it's just the thought, but a lot of departments have come back looking for additional personnel. And it goes beyond, the cost of their salary goes beyond whatever their salary is on their departmental budget.
Absolutely.
To all of this.
And that's a great point. And typically, and I'm not sure if it's fluctuated lately, but it's usually around 30%. So when you have a new employee, you usually have, the employer has a cost of additional 30% in addition to the salary, whether it's vacation time or benefits. It's a very important calculation to always assume. And yes, this is the other part of funding someone's retirement.
It's 10% of the budget.
Yes, yep, it's big.
And I guess that's, a lot of places are utilizing for certain positions, those post-retirement employees. And the advantage of that is you're not paying new health insurance costs. You're already paying their health insurance costs as a retiree. You're
Right.
gaining their expertise, but you're not bringing a new position on where you're paying their health insurance as well as the retirees' insurance. So, it's a big number, and it's a commitment that we make to the employees when they're brought on, for the time they're with us in their retirement years, that it's a cost, but it's a big number, and the numbers you're talking about are just huge.
They are, and it's important to still try to remain competitive, because there's only so much you can change in plan design where you lose people that may want to come work for Auburn, not because of the salary, but because of the health insurance. So typically, it's a 75-25 split. I do know people who have gone to 70-30 or 65-35. I've seen people increase some of their doctor's visits and things like that, and those are things that are important to always consider. What I use as a benchmark is the GIC, because we can always go to the GIC. I watch that, and as long as we're as competitive, if not more than them, we're in good shape. But it is something that has to be monitored all the time. It's such a big cost, we have to try to save costs, but yet we don't want to compete ourselves out of getting good employees.
I know of actually someone here might know of it very well, but a Southern Worcester County community that may have been 50-50, whose school department may have been in receivership at one point.
Oh, yes, yes.
And a lot of that, on the public safety side was people that, they were looking to get out because
Yeah,
the benefit was not there in terms of their health insurance.
right.
Patrick?
So you could either say 10% of our current budget, or you can say 30% of the benefits that go with the payroll. But on the OPEB actuarial, this is the year for the actuarial study?
That's
Coming up 27. So will that be done in the fall?
They usually do it over the,
After
they usually
year-end?
do it over the summer.
Oh, they do it over the summer? Oh, okay.
And then this includes the cost of the report and then the disclosures for the following year.
So does the OPEB, because it says OPEB or actuarial, and we've moved the OPEB to a warrant article, is there a mechanism in place to trigger us so that when we're writing up the warrant articles for this fall, that we remember the OPEB? Because there was a time when it was a line item, but then because it didn't go into the budget and get zeroed out, it became a warrant article.
Through the chair, we can never forget the OPEB. That's how big it is. It is an unfunded liability. It is on the topic of conversation every time we talk about a budget, every time we talk about retirees and employees. It is bigger than us in some ways. Karen and I were recently talking about, we do have a trust fund. We're actually meeting with Bartholomew next week to talk about strategies and different opportunities to help build that trust fund. Do we need a trust fund commission? I think you had mentioned at one point.
Suggested that we.
Yep. So we are meeting with them next week. Anything we can do to earn money in these accounts that we do have money in, because it's not going away and it needs to be funded over a period of time. So it is not anything we could ever forget.
Well, no, and I think it's important just not to forget it, but to remind people, because in as much as it's another yet expense item in our budgets, and it won't happen in maybe our retirements, well, not my retirement, I'll be gone. But the sooner we get that into check, because don't forget, as we fund it and the inflation shifts, we could become closer to our goal and then start to use it. And that's more the reason why we've done such an excellent job over the last decade at pumping it and getting it filled with some money. And I know we're ahead of a lot of municipalities, and I think that's great, but we shouldn't rest on our laurels because we're in the front of the line.
I agree.
Because the sooner and even if it's a quarter of what we had to do before, given the demands on this budget this year, I always see us as funding it, but I know we also have an employee portion, and it would be great at a minimum to match that, but I know that might not be realistic because we've got a lot of other, but I just wondered because I don't see the line item there anymore, so I just assumed it's no longer in the budget, it's just a warrant article,
I don't think Trevor will ever let us forget.
won't let us
He
forget
won't let OPEB's.
I love it more than you'll ever know. I love OPEB.
Interesting.
One of my favorite things.
Don't let me rain on your parade.
No. I was disappointed when she said this isn't one of my more fun areas, and
I
then
know.
not for me. But
Any other questions relative to pensions, pension and benefits?
Motion to recommend.
second,
We have a motion from Michael to recommend and a second from Trevor. Any other further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Get out of here fast.
Uh-oh. They're coming up. You guys have a long time for a long presentation.
I was just going to ask if is there popcorn? Have we-
You're going to need it.
the microwave?
23 of them going?
Wait till you called me, but I was just setting up. It's up to you
No,
guys.
no? Chief, is the deputy making the presentation tonight? He is?
Trying to give his voice a rest.
What?
Trying to give his voice a rest, to make sure. So, good evening, everyone. We have a short presentation, well, a quick presentation through, and then we'll come up
Make
and
promises you
sit.
can't
So
keep.
we'll try to keep it short for you. There we go. We'll start off with our funding sources. So some of the funding sources that we have, as you're aware, is we have our ambulance receipts That's money that comes from the operation of the ambulance that we bill out through a third-party company called Comstar. And as we receive that money, comes in, it goes back and helps offset the budget. And as you see on the slides, it offsets for 12 firefighter salaries, some overtime expenses, the EMS supplies, some technology, the medical director, some clothing, health and wellness, and medical supplies, as I said before. And it covers the CIP on the EMS side. Other areas of funds that we have is the CPE funds, and what that is, it's through the state, basically identifies that the ambulance bill that we received that we collected was lower than what it should be on the Medicaid side. Therefore, we have to do a very detailed application with a bunch of expenses and everything else, and we submit that each year, and then the state looks at it, and they determine how much money we should have been paid, and then they send us a check in June. So that's varied from $120,000 to up to $200,000. It really depends on your patient base and how many people you transport throughout the year based on their insurances. As we look at call volume, you can see our call volume has increased over the years, and as you look at it, right now, I just take note to 2020. We're going to come back to that shortly, but it's on a steady increase overall. And year to date right now, our calls are actually up 11% compared to last year. So it continues to climb. As for our response times, our average response time is 3 minutes and 51 seconds from the time we get out the door and go to and arrive at your house or business, whatever it may be for the emergency. And our average call time is 58 minutes and 25 seconds. That's up by 7 minutes. And some of the reasons why that is up is the increase in psychological emergencies. And there's more time that we're spending that we're doing some social service work on. Similar to, I know you guys asked the police about that question, and that's some of the reasons as well as associated. We do obviously work with the police very closely on some of those calls. So we've noticed the increase as well as they have. What's a staggering number for us is our overlapping calls. So in 2025, we had 75% of our calls were overlapping. And what that means is we're responding to one 911 call, and while we're on that call, at any point in time, another 911 call comes in, and another one comes in. So that's where you see our resources, and it kind of makes us unique in some aspects, and it was pointed out in the staffing study many years ago. But it makes us unique because you need a lot of resources all of a sudden at once. And that's some of the reasons that it was pointed out in the staffing study. And we have been increasing staffing, as you're aware, due to that and due to everybody's support, which we do thank. Currently, in 2026, our overlapping calls are 66% at this time. So some United States Census Bureau stuff. Currently, the population is 18,083. And our estimated daytime population is over 30,000. As everybody knows, it's constantly busy here during the day, between traffic, the highways, everything else, especially in the summer, start having the Mass Pike backed up and on the roadways. The town has seen some growth, a growth rate of 2.15%, with an increase of 77.3% since 2020. So our age demographics for the town is, as you can see, if you really look at the percentages of 40 to 64-year-olds, that's 34% of the town, and 65 and over is 22.12% of the town. And the medical calls of where we go, 53% or more of our calls are for 65 and older. And why we point that out is the largest population is your 40 to 64-year-olds. And as the town grows and increases and puts communities of 55 and older in, it allows the residents that were no longer able to stay in their homes to move to these communities. And what that does is it increases our call volume, because now the residents are able to stay in town in these communities, but however, based on statistics, they're going to call 911 more. The other factor is that when I said 2020, you saw the call spikes. What that is, I think that's a change in society. This is my own theory, by the way. So the change in society with COVID is that people started to work from home. And the way Auburn's made up is you have a lot of people that work outside of Auburn, like in Boston, different places, Framingham, Marlboro, but live in Auburn. But the makeup of the businesses in Auburn tend to be a lot of warehouses, banks, different functions of where people have to come to work. So in 2020, a lot of people stayed home. They learned that the office jobs could stay home. So now our daytime population, typically if you were working in Marlboro and you had chest pain, you would call 911, Marlboro would come. Now you're at home working, you're calling 911, and now we're responding. So that's an increase. The second part is I taught the public education for the fire department in the schools for, I don't know, I feel like 20 years at least, and I've been here for 32 now. But before that, there really wasn't as much fire education. And one of the things we drove home to all these students, and now all these kids that I taught are all adults, is you call 911 quickly if you want to live, or you call 911 if you have any problem. You call 911 if you don't know what you're doing. And we stressed that with all these students, and now they're older, and they are calling 911. So some of that is what I attribute to the increase in call volume that you see within town and across the country. It's no different anywhere. And I think a lot of that comes down to education, where my grandfather would have never called 911 for anything, probably should have, but if he was having chest pain, he wouldn't have called 911. Now, we tell you, it makes a big difference, and I feel like society is listening to that. And that's some of the increase for call volume. Once again, only my theory. Our organizational chart, as you can see, very difficult to read here. It is broken down a little bit further. In our department staffing, as you know, we have the chief, deputy chief. We have 2 full-time clerical assistants, 1 part-time. We have 1 fire marshal, 1 fire inspector, 1 EMS coordinator, 1 training officer, 1 fleet mechanic, 1 high school co-op at this time, 4 battalion chiefs, 2 captains, 6 lieutenants, 26 firefighter paramedics, 14 firefighter EMTs, which is a total of 61 full-time people. NFPA 1710, I believe we've spoke about that in the past, but it's the staffing. And with the SAFER grant that we've received and the increase in staffing, we're definitely coming closer to meeting the goal of NFPA 1710, which is having at least 15 firefighters on scene within 8 minutes for a low hazard event, which is a single family home. It increases more for the medium hazards and the high hazards. So we're getting closer on that, and we appreciate everybody's help. This is just another org chart of the working groups. As you can see, we have 4 working groups. We have 13 people per shift. And here's the org chart for the Bureau of Community Risk Reduction. And it's just more than fire prevention. As you see, we have some health and wellness. We have our public education division. We have the community risk analysis division, and we have our training division. Fire prevention is a very busy office. We have the fire marshal in there, and we have one of the fire inspectors, and they are constantly busy. They work closely with the community. They work closely with contractors, business owners, and I'd like to say they have a great relationship with the other town employees. They work close with inspectional services, constantly trying to do joint inspections, and that, therefore, you know, on a business owner or a contractor, that works out great because they can just schedule one inspection, get multiple things done at the same exact time, and it really, I think, makes things a lot smoother. And they can get all their questions answered at once. They also attend DCG, and they're there for any questions at that point. Continued on the fire prevention division, as you can see, lots of plan reviews, plan meetings. It's a very busy office. Emergency medical services coordinator and our community paramedic. Currently, she's responsible for all the QA, QI, which is the quality assurance portion of our EMS call. She has to look at every call that has been done. She looks at all the run reports. She makes sure everything is done correctly. provides feedback to the staff on positive and negative feedback. She also looks at trends. We look at like fall prevention and other things and where she can help with that and provide education. She maintains all the EMS equipment, handles any internal and external complaints regarding EMS, and she does all the continuing education for the department, and she's the liaison for the EMS billing, the liaison to our medical director, and to the Office of Emergency Medical Services. And she works with the Board of Health closely on any medical issues within the public, and she's there for help with the flu clinics and everything else. Our training officer is responsible for all the fire training side of things, and he works closely as well with the EMS coordinator who takes care of all the EMS training so that they jointly can do 2 trainings at once and, you know, make it more realistic. He also is responsible for the training facility itself. He's responsible for all the probationary firefighters, making sure that the training gets completed. We do have a rigorous training program. We have a rigorous driving training program. As you know, the vehicles aren't the same as driving a car. We can't just put a brand new person in that and have them drive. So they do many, many hours of driver training. People that live in certain neighborhoods like Woodland, they're very aware of that because we go in tight neighborhoods, so they see us all the time down there. He also maintains all the records that are necessary for our OSHA compliance, and he manages, he acts as our safety officer when on scene. Fleet services and small engine division. So we have 30 different vehicles that our fleet division is responsible for, and we have 59 small engines that are repaired in-house. And we have 1 full-time mechanic. He's an EVT mechanic, so emergency vehicle technician. And that's a very specialized position. It's different than a regular mechanic. And as some of you may know, he was out, our mechanic was out injured for about 11 months. He's recently came back. He did have some surgery. And during that time frame, we did have to outsource quite a bit of our repairs to the fleets, and we had some fairly large repairs. And we work closely with the DPW, and, you know, I can't thank the DPW enough. The mechanics, John over there, has been great, phenomenal to work with. However, from an EVT standpoint, he is not able to work on the fire trucks. He doesn't have the background on the fire trucks, nor does he really have the interest in it because of the time and the training and everything else that it takes. It would take him away from his current job far too long, and the training in it is very well involved. But John is, you know, works closely back and forth. He's worked closely with our co-op student. He's worked closely with Kenny to help figure it out. But the EVT portion of it, fire trucks are a little different. They may look like a big truck, but they have redundant systems in them. They have different things. They have pumps on them, things that a normal truck does not have. And the same with even an ambulance. You'll look at it and think it's just, you know, a Chevy or a Ford potentially. But the other systems that are in it, they have different types of suspensions in them. They have all kinds of emergency life-saving stuff in the back that is purposely done in their electronics so that if we do lose electrical, we don't lose certain components for the patient's safety. So it's a completely different animal as a mechanic, and it takes a lot of time. So we really enjoy having our co-op student, and there really could be enough room for 2 mechanics in there. I know we did ask for 2 mechanics, and that was cut out there. However, we would love to maintain at least the co-op student next year from Bay Path. That would be great if we could do that, something to look forward to. But our mechanic, Ken Raboyne, is looking to retire, and he's going to be retiring within a year. He hasn't given me a date yet, but he knows it will be sometime after December, but he's not sure exactly when. So our hope was originally to get the second mechanic to be able to start succession planning and get that person trained up and work with Kenny, and so that they got to know the fleet. But I think, you know, moving forward, at least having that second set of hands with the co-op student will help Kenny, and it will help whoever the future mechanic may be. Our special teams, as many of you know, we also, besides fire and EMS, we do dive rescue, technical rescue. We work with the Semlec drone team. We do our own drone stuff as well with District 7. We have members on the SWAT team, our motor, the K9, which I think many of you know, we have a new K9. He's currently training. He's doing excellent. I saw a video of him the other day working. He's doing phenomenal. The state hazmat team, the fire investigation unit, and our medical specialist team. From a technology standpoint, out of my 32 years, I'd say this is one of the biggest things that has changed. You know, we started writing reports on paper, and then we switched to putting them into a system, and then the systems have evolved. So right now, we use a lot of technology. We have station alerting, records management, incident management, asset tracking, scheduling, medications and dosing, drug tracking, the electronic patient care report, online training and tracking, fleet tracking, you know, and then all your medical equipment. It all intertwines. Things are Bluetooth now. If we put on a life pack and we do a 12-lead EKG on you, it actually is Bluetooth connected to the computers, and it uploads to our instant care reports. And a lot of the electronic care report is also now AI generated, where we can actually get in the back of the truck, just push a button on, and it takes the call and actually will listen to everything, and it notes it for you. So if you're in a very busy call and you don't have time to, you know, note your blood pressure, it notes it for you. As long as you say everything out loud, it catches it, and it's very accurate. So things have come a long way with that. And the way our systems are intertwined, we use one of the programs we use is First Do. It's intertwined so that the schedule is in there, it has riding positions, and then if we go to a call and we use our command board, and we have a board where we can say where everybody is, if they're on the second floor, wherever it may be, it's a quick drop, just drag and drop, and the crew's there, we can track them, we know where they are. So much to it. I could go on forever on. You guys don't want to listen to that, I'm sure. This is the station alerting, just showing inside. We have boards, TVs, you have iPads in each truck. We can see where all the vehicles are, and that is very helpful. So we know if they're still at the hospital or not without even having to ask them. The other thing we have is fairly new is it's called the Haas Alert, and many of you guys may not know the name of it but are familiar with it. If you use Waze at all, this is what alerts you that an emergency vehicle is ahead of you and that there's an emergency scene. I know the state police uses it, and we have found this very beneficial. And if you look at some of the stats, I was kind of amazed at it, is that in 6 months we have alerted 31,000 drivers that they were approaching an emergency scene. And, you know, that's 184 vehicles per day. But our apparatus, there's another system in there. If you look at the picture up there, the one with the 3 red dots, that system tells us whether or not another emergency vehicle is approaching at us, and we're on kind of, for lack of better words, collision course, even though we're not necessarily going to collide. It just warns you, hey, you're coming up on somebody else coming up on you. And that works with anyone that has this device. So any other agencies, I know Charlton Fire has it, so if they're coming through town with an ambulance or something and we have a fire truck coming to something else, it notifies us of that. Same with state police. If state police is coming near us, we know they're coming. We don't necessarily know it's them, but we know somebody's coming, and it's very beneficial, helps reduce accidents, hopefully. Other technologies with the drone. The drone is used for so many things now. It's used between fire prevention with the inspections of solar roofs. It's used on just getting an aerial view for an emergency incident, trying to find a brush fire, wherever it may be, getting that 360 quickly, trying to help find people, traffic accidents, looking from above. It's a great tool, and we're very happy to have it. Anyone that operates the drone, they're all FAA certified drone pilots. This slide in here, just real quick, because one of the requests we had was for some $300,000 more in overtime, and we'll get to talking about overtime shortly. but this was for supervisor overtime. So just wanted to point out some of the things that supervisors are responsible for with their critical decision thinking skills and everything that they do that not necessarily a firefighter does, and the way you have to think differently. And we have some more slides down the road that we can discuss with that and get into more details. I think I provided you information on the different types of calls that people are responsible for, the types of communications with supervisors. Jump into our CIP real quick. We have 3 items on there. We have the replacement of the deputy chief's vehicle, the replacement of an ambulance, and facility improvements on there. Any questions before I step up? No.
Come on up.
Sorry, I tried to be quick as possible.
No, that's great. So I see you've got an additional sort of follow-along presentation. So how would you like to, since you've sort of got a presentation to go along with the numbers, how would you like us to
I have no
discuss this?
no problems going line by line if you want to go line by line, or we can entertain questions and then I can get to the slides if you would like to get to the slides to
I don't think
explain
we have to
things.
do line by line, but if we'll have questions as we go. Do we want to?
The end slides were really for you, just for additional information. They just correspond with the line, so we don't even really have to go through those slides. They're just related to the line items in the budget.
Okay. So I guess the way we've done other ones, are there particular items that you wish to highlight within this budget before we go to individual questions on lines?
Do you want to do overtime? Yeah, okay.
We get that one out of the way?
Sure, we can get the overtime out of the way. Any particular questions on overtime before I start?
I know, Mike, you don't have to.
Okay. All right, sorry, I'm just moving a couple things.
They, Mr. Marshall's convinced.
The
but
dog's coming up the stairs in 10 seconds. So come up here and lick everyone's hands.
So in this budget, as you know, we requested an additional $300,000 in overtime, and that was cut from the budget. And the reason for it was we're trying to maintain 3 supervisors per shift. And one of those reasons, as I mentioned before, was the overlapping calls, the multiple emergencies that, we have supervisors out on other calls, different pieces, meaning we have 2 fire trucks that are operating, and we have a battalion chief in a car. And going, each of those engines needs a supervisor on it. And right now, if based on time off, that supervisor on the engine would be off, and that would mean a firefighter would end up stepping up. So the firefighters do not have the necessary training to be the supervisor, and that was the reason for the request. That's the reason why I gave you the slides of what a supervisor does, and I think it's very detailed in it, and the critical thinking piece is really by far the biggest piece of a supervisor, and being able to quickly think and communicate well and get the additional resources, be able to pay attention to their surroundings. And, one of the things for the supervisor when they're on scene looking around is they're protecting their crew. It's crew safety, it's public safety around them, making sure that the guys and girls that are actually functioning and doing the job, that they don't have to worry about their surroundings at that particular minute, because their supervisor is really paying attention and making sure that it's a safe environment. So that was the reason for the request. As you know, the overtime is the most misunderstood line item. Everyone thinks it's just to cover shifts, and it's not. So even our $600,000 that we have in there, if we look at our overtime study that I did in the past, that to keep up with things, it really should be $675,000 based on the 15% of the budget. However, I know we're at level funded at 600,000, but that was our request, was for the 900,000. So overtime, do you have a question?
No, I think there are going to be some questions on it.
I have one question, because I'm trying to understand because you have your team groups, which has a supervisor in it. And so now you're kind of saying that you need overtime for the supervisor, but you don't actually have, based on your grouping, you don't have enough supervisors to be the overtime fill-in for the missing supervisor. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure I'm asking it properly, but.
Not entirely sure, so I'll try to answer what I have. So we have 3 supervisors per shift. We have a battalion chief. Some groups have a captain and 1 lieutenant. Some groups have just 2 lieutenants and the battalion chief. So there's 3 supervisors on, and those supervisors ride in different vehicles and respond to different calls. And the way the town's broken up is we have 2 districts. In the west end covers District 2, and at the west end there's a fire truck, and they have a lieutenant in that truck. But if that lieutenant takes the day off, then there's nobody to cover that. You can't shift necessarily another supervisor out there without taking him off of a different piece, because the other supervisor, the other lieutenant or captain, is at headquarters covering District 1 on that fire truck. And then we have the battalion chief who's in the car, who can float around to the different emergencies that they go on, and often due to the overlapping calls, they're on their own emergency while the engines are on their emergencies. So without having a supervisor in that engine, now I have a truck with just firefighters in that, making all the necessary decisions that are needed for each call, trying to fill in the role of a supervisor when they're really not trained to be supervisors. I don't know if that helps.
If I could just follow up, because I think I understood your question. So one of the concerns that the deputy and I have, as well as the rest of the command staff, is that much like the police department said to you the night that they were here, they have a very young police department, and we have a very young fire department. According to our collective bargaining agreement, in order to be even eligible for a promotion, you have to have 5 years of experience. 62% of our firefighters are not even eligible to take a promotional exam today. So to your point, you're saying, I think what you're saying is that we want a supervisor on those 3 pieces, but we may not have enough supervisors to actually make sure we fill those shifts. Exactly. Well, I guess that's the beauty of a public safety 24-hour operation. It's offered to you, and if you say no, then you're forced. So someone will be working that shift one way or another. What it really comes down to for us is the comfort level that with the makeup of the department, we're putting inexperienced firefighters who are not even eligible to take a promotional exam, and we're putting them in the front seat, asking them to make critical decisions. So that's why the increase request for overtime is that we want to ensure that we have supervisors, real supervisors in those. And if they're offered the overtime and they say no, someone will be forced to work. There will be a supervisor sitting in that seat, whether they want to be there or not.
Just to play a little bit of a devil's advocate, does that mean your staffing level is so tight that every time somebody takes a vacation or a day off or whatever, that we're forced into overtime because the staffing is too low for supervisors?
No. Right now, and I've said this publicly before, is that with moving to 13 a group, the contractual minimum is 9. So that really gives us a buffer of 4 people before we have to fill for overtime. But it also depends on who is requesting the time off. If, 3 firefighters requested the day off, they could get the day off. If 3 supervisors requested the day off, not all 3 supervisors are getting the day off. So, but if you were in a situation where you gave 2 supervisors a day off, and we were filling 1-for-1 on the officer positions, then that means you would be filling 2 officer positions to ensure that you still had 3 supervisors. So the staffing is not so tight that we're filling 1-for-1 in every time off, but it gets tighter when you're talking about the supervisors requesting time off. Our major concern and the focus for this request is we want to ensure that we don't have unqualified people. And when I say unqualified people, I'm not talking about unqualified in their role. I'm talking about unqualified in supervisory positions, which is not their normal job. That's what we're trying to avoid.
Michael?
Just to clarify Steve's question, and then I have a follow-up too. If one supervisor is out right now, under your proposal, we would force overtime on a different supervisor, potentially.
Offer or force?
Or offer or force, every time.
Yes.
Anytime a supervisor is out, we would always
Right.
have an extra.
It would be 1-for-1 for officers, but not for firefighters.
So, yeah, I think that was what Steve was
Right.
trying to get at, was
I mean, it seems to me we have a
anyone takes
supervisor
vacation.
shortage more than a funding shortage, to be honest with you.
Well, you have to strike a balance too,
you gotta
because
follow-
you
you gotta
can't have
follow.
a shift of all supervisors either. So there's a balance there, there's a fine line.
to follow up, maybe this is a silly question, but if 62% of our firefighters are not eligible for the promotional exam, that means 38 are. Are those 38 spread out strategically over the shifts? And if they're not, like, if we know we have 40 firefighters, if 4 of them are people that you think are in a position to actually step up and the rest aren't, are they on 4 different shifts, or are they all on the same shift? Like, are these considerations that we're making and
They are a variety of shifts. Yeah.
like from my perspective, I guess I can appreciate the desire to have people who are qualified to do the job, but if every single, we have 4 battalion chiefs, 2 captains, and 6 lieutenants, so that's 12 people. Is that right? Yeah, 12 people. If we're having to force, offer or force overtime for every single day that every one of those guys takes, if they each, I don't know how much vacation they each get, but assuming it's at least 3 weeks, that's 36 weeks a year. That's almost a full-time position extra. So I guess, from our perspective, that's a lot. I'm not asking to compromise the safety of the people in town, and I'm not asking to compromise the safety of the firefighters, but it does strike me as potentially we have no redundancy issue and not we need overtime issue. And I get that the two go hand in hand, because if it was up to you, you'd have 25 guys on every shift, and 10 of them would be opposite. I know, and you're put in the position of having to make those tough choices. But I just think, from our perspective, that's sort of the point that Steve's getting at is, if every time someone needs to take a vacation, we have to force overtime, that's a much bigger ask than if there's some middle ground there. And I don't know what it is, but.
Trevor?
Yeah, just to the 62% there, how quickly will that, obviously not every single one of those persons is a day one firefighter. So, when do we see that shift where they're, and obviously understand not every single one of those people wants to be in that role. So where do you guys see the department in terms of in the next 18 months, we'll have 3, 4, 5 people who would be eligible for those positions, who want those positions, who you guys feel comfortable passing those positions off?
Basically going to be about 4 years.
It's that young?
Yeah.
Okay.
On that side. Yep.
Patrick?
I just went, and I knew overtime was going to come up because it's a complex formula that I think as a committee we're trying to absorb time and time again. But I think there's another component of it. What I did was I went back and I looked at the list you had supplied us with about a year or so back of the whole detailed, the 40 or 50 categories that make up overtime. And one of the things that I realized in looking at it, is that a lot of those responsibilities don't fall in a normal shift or a normal day or 40, 32 point. I know you have so many days on or so forth. And some of the things that as a community we expect our firefighters to provide, they have to step outside their regular 40 hours. They have to supply those that, for the lack of a better word, meet the needs of the community beyond. So it's not just a matter of asking for overtime because we're dealing with someone who's sick or taking a day off, but there's additional responsibilities that are being asked of the, for the lack of a better word, firefighters, that goes beyond their 40 hours that they're stepping up to do and are entitled to earn overtime pay, even if it's at the end of a week when they've been fully staffed. So I sort of learned at looking at that list that it's a portion, there's a portion of overtime that they're always going to be entitled to.
Yeah, and that's, that's through
Placed on
the,
by the community.
yeah, that's through the 600,000, like Mr. Jones says, there's a lot of things that go into the overtime, and the shift staffing part is kind of a smaller part. There are emergency callbacks. There's other programs like teaching CPR. We have car seats. There's many other things that they do off shift that are for the benefit of the community. And I think, going back to my public education stuff that I said before, I think the community, living in Auburn expects to have some of these services. They pay their taxes. They want really good services. And I believe as a resident, I believe we get great services here. We get things that you don't get in other communities. And that's what makes a difference, Here at the fire department, both the chief and I, we want nothing better than to be the best service in the area. We pride ourselves on it. We have great people. And these extra programs that we have, one, they attract personnel for us and help our staffing needs. Two, they're great for the residents. They're great interaction for the residents. It allows people to get to know us on a different side than besides an emergency. So that's definitely one side of the overtime, and I think you're always going to have the overtime, unfortunately.
Trevor? This might be a dumb question, and I promise it won't be the last one. That's dumb. Does forced overtime cost more? Is that a agreed upon thing? Like if you force somebody, like say you're getting, time and a half, if you force in, is it 1.75 or 2 double time?
Yep, it is. It's double time, but I will say our force rate is actually extremely low.
Okay.
Most of the time, somebody picks up the overtime, and that's at your standard rate.
Which is it's a testament to your team, because the thing we hear constantly across every department and company, public or private, is no one wants to work anymore and yada, yada, yada. So the idea that that's not an issue we're running into, because my thought is that 600,000, how much of that is getting eaten up by the fact that we have to basically pay an extra half a salary, half the wage, instead of.
Yeah, the forced overtime is very low.
Okay.
Compared to where it has been in the past is very low. And I think that's due to some of the increased staffing. However, though, back to what you were saying, it is mainly the older crowd on the department that takes the overtime compared to the younger crowd.
Yeah.
So it's an up and growing problem, because even the police station, when they came in with their budget, they stated the same thing, that they would rather walk away and have family time and get your shift correctly, and spend time with their family.
Yeah.
So it's a growing situation.
It's just a
It's not-
societal change.
Yep.
If I could just follow up too on something Trevor said that's very important, is that, and it's why I say often that overtime is one of the most misunderstood things, is because I also think that people jump to that the reason for overtime is because there's a sick time problem or people are not coming to work. And I said this, in the slides later for you, is that couldn't be further from the truth either in our organization, is that we monitor sick time on an annual basis. I work with HR. They send me the sick time report and I analyze all of the sick usage within the department. And we post it publicly in the station. We post it so everybody can see. And we have many members that use no sick time in the course of a year, but the average sick time use within our department for a department of our size is 3. That's extremely low. So we do not have it. So even when, you go back to the chart that Mr. Jones was talking about with the various categories of overtime, sick time coverage is a very, very small percentage of why overtime is actually even generated. So, and again, that's a testament to our staff too, because in some cases, we have to throw our staff out of the building and send them home because they came to work and we were like, you can't be here. Go. They want to be at work,
I just want to, so you made a pretty big change this year in your organization. The creation of the title, the rank of battalion chief, promotion of people from ranks of captain to battalion. Can you just go over that? Because I think it is an important equation when you're asking for more supervisors, when in essence we've created another rank and they don't really fall into that sitting in the front seat possibility any longer.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So again, the important thing to understand is that even though we've created new ranked positions, we didn't change the total count of supervisors. So we had 12 supervisors before those promotions, and we still have 12 supervisors today. They're rank changes which came really with responsibility. And this is something that the deputy and I have been eyeing for many years. Largely, we were kind of eyeballing it even before the 2022 staffing report, but the staffing report sort of reiterated it, is that we have a command car that functions. And the captain of the shift, we always had a captain and 2 lieutenants. The captain was in the command car. And then if the captain was off, the lieutenant would be allowed to riding up. They would be able to ride up into the command car. But the captain is not the right rank to be riding in the command car. A command car is chief level responsibilities. There's more administrative responsibility. There's more command and control responsibility. Lieutenants and captains operate in what you would call a single piece. They are the lieutenant or the captain of an engine company or a ladder company or a rescue company. They supervise a group of 2 or 3 firefighters in that company. Chiefs supervise multiple companies out of multiple fire stations. So the reason for the change from captain to battalion chief was we really identified those positions with the correct rank with the responsibility that they have within the organization. So when you are in a command car and you are taking complete incident command control of an incident, that is not the job of a line level supervisor that has the training up to operating within a single company. The Mass Fire Academy even recognizes this because many of the command and control classes and the higher level incident command classes, you have to be a chief officer in order to get into those classes. So we were in a position where we had captains that were riding in a command car but could not get into the command level training classes at the Massachusetts Fire Academy because they did not have the rank to get into those classes. So the staffing study indicated that, and again, our staffing did not allow that car to be up 24/7 every day. So it was up when staffing allowed, but it said when we were in a position to have that car up every day, that we should, first off, the report said the car should be up every day. But then we should consider, if we're going to maintain a captain, that's fine, but it should be considered to be a higher rank if it's going to be in that position. So the 4 captains were promoted and moved into battalion chiefs. And by definition, a battalion chief supervises multiple companies. Again, we have 4 companies that are operating during the day and multiple fire stations. We have 2 staffed fire stations. So that move was putting those captains really in the appropriate rank that they were running when they were in the command car. And then we didn't backfill all 4 captains' position. What we did was we created a house captain model, which is many departments across the country use a house captain model. So we promoted 2 of the lieutenants to the rank of captain So we have one captain that's at headquarters and one captain that's at West Street, and they are considered the house captain, so they are responsible for that house. So any issues or problems that come up in that house, whether it's facilities rated or even maybe personnel related, those get moved to the captain, and if the captain can't handle it at that level, then it would be moved to the battalion chief level to be dealt with or higher. And then we have the 6 lieutenants. So just kind of swinging around, we understand that 300,000 was a big ask. I'll be quite honest with you, we were not anticipating to get it, but it starts the conversation about what the challenges are. And I think down the road, maybe the answer is to backfill 4 additional lieutenants, so each group had 4 lieutenants, so it gives us more flexibility in the officer coverage. The good news is that when you look at our current overtime budget, if you notice, we have not yet been here for a transfer this year, right? So when you look at the current overtime budget, at the 600,000, if you were to break that out into quarters, right? You have 150 grand per quarter. We are currently, as the overtime budget sits today, we're at 164,000. So we're operating just above in the black as far as overtime. Now, the concern that we have is that we really kind of made 2 overtime requests, if you will, in order to stay consistent with maintaining an overtime budget of 15% of the total firefighter salary line. The overtime really should have gone from 600 to like 675. Then we asked for that additional funding for the supervisor only, and everything was cut and we were level funded. And again, I completely understand the position that the manager was in. This has been talked about, I think, at every budget meeting that you've had up to this point. She had an impossible task. So I understand the cut. I want to point it out that the level funding of the overtime is exactly what put us into this position, because the overtime was level funded for 8 years. So we just need to I understand that there are going to be tight years where we may not be able to do it. But with the overtime, we're in the black right now, but we have a thin margin. If we level fund overtime going into next year, we are not going to be at that margin at the same time, right? We just signed a collective bargaining agreement that have higher hourlies, higher overtime rates. So the 600,000 isn't going to be enough moving into next fiscal year. So I completely understand the 300,000 not being possible. It was really just put in to raise the discussion. But I think we really need to look seriously at least trying to maintain a realistic percentage of the firefighter salary line.
I guess just to build upon, so the change in battalion chief, there was a change in salaries for those members.
That's correct.
There was an increase. We don't even have to get it, but just there's an increase. Compare your budget to the police department budget. The police department budget breaks out the costs of lieutenants and the costs of sergeants. Yours is putting everybody from battalion chief down to 1-year firefighter under firefighters.
Correct. Historically, that's the way this budget has
I'm
always
saying
been.
that's difficult, especially as you're talking about growing now specific budgets for supervisory overtime.
We could certainly, in next year's budget, but we actually made a lot of adjustments this year that kind of mimicked more of what the police line items were. And you recall, every year for probably the last 4 or 5 years, I've had budget changes because our budget looked drastically different from the police department's budget. So we've been making strides every year to try to tie these line items a little more reflective. So I think next year's budget, that's certainly something we could do where we could break out the supervisors like they do.
Traditional org charts with rank ideally look like a Christmas tree. Yours looks like a little bit of it's a wonky Christmas tree. You've got the 4 battalion chiefs, only 2 captains, and then 6 lieutenants. Just as a note relative to, as you're asking for more supervisory positions, and even on your true org chart, in one group 3, you've got a captain who's overseeing the headquarters, and then in the other 3 groups, it's a lieutenant. In group 4, you've got a captain who oversees station 2, and everybody else in the other groups are lieutenants. So I don't know if you have a long range goal as to how you would you ideally have a captain for each of the headquarters stations, or a captain at the Station 2 and the battalion chief working out of Station 1 or the headquarters? Is your goal to get to a more traditional-looking organizational chart?
Our goal would be to eventually have the 4 captains per group, and there's a few reasons for that. One, the oversight. 2, the ability later on for succession planning. As people move up, people retire, you have more people available to go for the battalion chief's positions as they open up. And if you only maintain the 2 captains throughout, that would make the pool very limited. So we'd increase that, and down the road, I'd envision someday getting some more firefighters and then adding that additional rank and having operate a ladder/rescue together, but it's way in the future.
Just
Even
just
before-
to the deputy's point, Mr. Kennedy, just to the deputy's point, when I talked about the captains were allowed to ride up to the battalion, now that vehicle is staffed all the time, the lieutenants are not allowed to ride up into. So the 2 captains we have are the only positions that are allowed to ride up into the command car, because it's a different level of training. At each rank, the lieutenants, then you move to captain, you have more responsibility, more training, different training. Battalion chiefs, it's different. So a captain is able to ride up. A lieutenant does not have necessarily the experience or the skill set to ride up to make the decisions that need to be made in that car. So to the deputy's point, it would be nice at some point down the road to get those 4 captains, because it also increases the amount of people that are able to ride up into the command car as well. Because right now, let's hypothetically say that we were to get the 300,000 and we were going to be able to staff 3 supervisors every shift. There's only 6 people in the department that are authorized to ride in the command car. The 4 lieutenants would not be eligible to ride up.
So, and just to clarify, and I think I know, so you only have 1 group working at a time?
Correct.
So 3/4 of the department is off at any given time, and, okay. Because I guess, all the reasons you gave as to why a battalion chief is created are the reasons why a captain shouldn't even be allowed to move up, but you've only got 1, that it should be someone in the chief rank who's doing the command and control at all times.
Yeah,
And the captain, in essence, should only be allowed to bump down to oversee a truck with those young firefighters that you just talked about, which may necessitate, but if you did do that, you would have to hire, anytime a battalion chief took the night off, you'd have to
go 1-for-1 on battalions, which isn't realistic. And even from as the deputy mentioned, even from a successor plan, I think it's a good thing to provide the captains with the level of training that they need to fill in a command car. It sets them up for potentially taking that position in the future, but it's too much of a jump to go from lieutenant into the command car. But, getting those other 2 captain positions back, like down the road, if we were to add another layer of supervisors, it would be to get those 2 captains back, because now your potential of people who can ride in the command car goes from 6 to 8.
I just caught a trend that I just wanted to, I think I'm correct, I just want to verify. A few weeks ago when we met with the library, there's a library material line, and what we learned when we looked at that budget was that library material line is really 15% of their budget, and that cost gives them materials and access to over almost $400,000. The line item is around 130, but my reason for bringing it up is because as the library budget increases, it's a given that the state has mandated that that percentage of 15% be there. So I bring that up in relation to your budget because in listening to you tonight, it sounds to me, in full transparency, thank you, which you stated that as their budget grows, there's a certain amount of overtime. There's an expectation that overtime budget line item is going to have to grow with the budget because payroll is going to go up.
Yeah, and it's a
services
percentage of
are
the firefighter salary line, not the budget as a whole.
No, but still, it's still part of the budget as a
100%.
whole because of the firefighters' payroll. And as a result of that, because salaries will go up, that overtime will continue to go up because the services that cover that overtime covers are going to be needed. just an observation that it's sort of a forced line item increase. And that's sort of the observation I made with the library. I was like, oh, so it's got to be 15% of your budget. And it sounds to me like this nemesis, for the lack of a better word, this overtime thing that we've been discussing will continue to be a discussion because it's sort of forced by the description of the line item.
Does anyone have anything else specific to the overtime and staffing before I ask another question? I don't want to start.
I have nothing further overtime related. I do have another one relative to part of your,
Yeah, I just didn't want to like introduce another topic and then have them have to keep coming back to it. So, I don't want to say aside from that because obviously that's a big part of what's going on in the overtime, but we've kind of been trying to get a feel from the different departments on the other areas that you see as needs for the department that you couldn't request in the budget or that you were going to request but didn't, got denied. And I'm just curious, outside of the staffing and overtime needs, are there any other things in terms of, CIP, long-term projects that you guys are looking for that weren't able to be asked for, or things just that we can keep an eye on and, down the road and,
Sure. One of them definitely was the second fleet mechanic, knowing where we're at with our current fleet mechanic, knowing that there's enough work in there, the amount of vehicles, small engines, everything else that they work on, and having that second mechanic get trained in the emergency vehicle technician courses would greatly help our department. But without having that second position, at a minimum, it would be nice to be able to have the $20,000 to do a co-op from Baypath and have them at least work with the mechanic. Having that second set of hands helps a lot when you're dealing with generally very heavy pieces that go into those large trucks. So that's one area that we would like. On the capital side, I know we're currently trying to get some prices on roof replacement, and I believe it's going to come in higher than what we're currently budgeted for, but we don't have all the numbers yet.
I kind of asked a similar question to the police department, so I'm going to do my best here to do this. But you guys had a breakdown of the demographic of the town, and also mentioned the growing call time related to behavioral health issues. I'm curious, are those behavioral health issues in a large scale, because obviously everything's different? Is that mostly elderly and dementia issues? Is that with younger calls and in mental health among like the younger generation? And I guess I'm leading into, I would assume that as an older town, eventually we're going to phase out. I know there's a cap limit because we have a lot of things like elder service places where that population is always going to be a certain percentage. But if we're starting to see the town become younger and more people moving into the town and families as opposed to, selling those homes to starter homes, do we see that being a growing issue, that we're having more behavioral health time calls and that call time expanding? Or is it something with the older population and as we're getting short? I don't know if I did a good job explaining that, but.
No, I think I understand where you're going. So we definitely have on the psychological emergencies, you kind of have it high on the elderly side right now, between some depression and other things. And then you've seen an increase on the younger side, the teenagers, starting young, as young as like 10, you start to see it, and that follows through throughout their adult life. But it definitely has increased on the younger side. You can see it in the schools. You can just look at our run numbers and break down our patients, and you can see that.
I just see that obviously, I mean, I've been doing this for like a decade now, and call volume has been something that obviously always comes up. And if we're now dealing with an issue of volume and duration at the same time, obviously it seems like we have the numbers in front of us to do the analytic work on it. So I'm just,
I like numbers.
Get an understanding of is that something, a trend like that you see, in addition to call volume continuing to expand, you also see that call time?
Currently I do. And on top of it, it's not always just the residents of Auburn. We have various medical facilities between Reliant Medical Group, 460 Southbridge Street. And those are the doctor's offices that people go there for emergencies, and then the doctors will send them out, even for psychological emergencies as well. So it's not always just in town, but we see the increase because of all the different facilities we have as well.
If I could just follow up on that, Mr. Chair. The other thing too is, psych is certainly a component of it, but as medicine progresses, right, and I love having conversations with our community just about the EMS side, because I think some people, especially those that maybe call the ambulance and they've had to call a couple of times, medicine has progressed dramatically, certainly in the last 20 years, but even in the last decade. We are truly practicing medicine in the back of the truck. We have over 50 drugs that we can administer. In a cardiac arrest situation, we are bringing the emergency room to you. And that has resulted in statewide treatment protocol changes. When I came on the job, 33 years ago, and you had a cardiac arrest situation, first off, you were lucky to own a defib if you could afford it, right? But you used to do what was called treating them with diesel, which meant you threw them in the back of the truck and you started CPR and you got them to the hospital as fast as you could, right? That was the survival plan. In 2026, that is not the survival plan. When we go to someone's home and we're working a cardiac arrest, the statewide treatment protocols require that we work on that individual for a minimum of 20 minutes in the home, because your best chance of survival is going to be within that 20-minute period, because the emergency room is going to do nothing different for you than we're going to do in that emergency room in that 20 minutes. And I don't think people always understand that. But going back to the supervisors, right, not to drag supervisors into this again, right? But this is also why it's critical to ensure that you have properly trained, qualified supervisors on scene. Because think about that dynamic for 1 second. When you dial 911, your loved one's on the ground, and you come in, what's human nature? What do they want you to do? They want you to get them in the ambulance and get them to the hospital. So with these new treatment protocols and the way that medicine is advanced, our supervisors are in a much greater high-stress situation, because the role of the supervisor in that particular case is to manage family and to explain and manage why we are not putting them in the ambulance and why we need to spend the next 20 minutes on your living room floor. And that can be an extremely chaotic thing. So it's just another kind of reason why it's critical that you have supervisors there. But it's things like that also increases the time, because with one protocol change, we just added 20 minutes onto that call potentially.
You just really explained your second slide very well.
Yeah. So we've now added and introduced 20 minutes on there, because the best chance of survival. And as medicine continues to grow, the deputy and I just had a meeting with our medical director the other day, and again, we get presented with, I'll call it cool because it is, but we get presented with a lot of cool opportunities because of who we are as an agency. I'm not shy to say that we are a revered fire and EMS agency in this area. We do a lot of things right, and we have a lot of good people, and that gives us a lot of opportunity. And our medical director, one of the things that is up and coming, Massachusetts honestly is a little behind the curve when you look at it nationwide, but blood transfusions in the field is a huge advancement in EMS, especially in traumatic motor vehicle or anything like that, amputations. Typically we start an IV, we're giving fluid. What they really need is blood. And we're in the very early talks right now with our medical director that hopefully by the end of this calendar year, we're going to be running blood, and we're going to be doing blood transfusions in the field. We're talking with our medical director right now about providing antibiotics in the field. One of the biggest threats to patients, especially in motor vehicle accidents or, again, any traumatic incidents, even illness, is sepsis. And sepsis kills more people on an annual basis than the surgery itself. And really, when antibiotics need to start being introduced is in the field at that time with all of the things that are going on when people are most susceptible to infection. So we're hopefully this year, I'm confident it's going to happen, we're going to be administering antibiotics in the field to try to reduce the sepsis in patients. So these are all things that, you know, require additional training, require constant monitoring by our medical director, but they drive the time of these types of calls up. It drives the documentation up. But, you know, the residents of this community are extremely lucky that we have the people that we do and we're in the position that we're in because we get asked to do these things by the medical director to say, if anybody's going to pilot this or if we're going to give it to anybody, we want to give it to you.
My other question was, there was a request in here to bring some parity between the deputy chief, fire chief's salary and what the deputy police chief's salary is.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of going to pose this question. It isn't really specific to that. I'm in favor of parity. They're both public safety agencies with similar staffing and complexities for their operations. But I think I'm going to pose this one to the town manager, if possible. At some point, the police chief's line, police chief's and deputy chief's education line references the word Quinn. Quinn is only for people that were eligible for that benefit, and new hires are currently not eligible for educational benefits. New patrolman is not getting that educational incentive, if I'm correct in that.
Through the chair, if a police officer, even new hires, have a bachelor's, an associate, or a master's degree, they will get the education stipend. It's no longer called the Quinn, but it's the old Quinn. So
Same percentages?
right now, they're not at full Quinn. They have increased from last year due to negotiations. They will not be at full Quinn for 2 more years.
Okay. I guess that was my concern, was we have parity amongst the fire chief and deputy chiefs at some point when new personnel move up the ranks within the police department organization that would not have the educational incentive and in essence would be significantly lower than their fire counterparts now because that educational piece would drop off for the police, but that is not necessarily the case?
No, in negotiations this past year, we did a lot of work on parity, but we also did a lot of work to ensure that we would stay competitive with our neighboring towns. We don't want to be a place where people come to work and train here and leave. One of the biggest issues was Quinn, education. It was an area that, I'm going to be honest with you, I walked into negotiations and I said, no. It's not happening. And you can ask anyone in the police department that was at the table. I was dead set against it. I did the analysis myself. I did the comparison myself. I looked at all the area towns. I got the data. And I had to change my thought process. And they needed to get to full Quinn. It made sense, but that meant that they couldn't get the raises that everyone else was getting. Like, you only have so much money. So we did a lot of work to try to eventually bring them up to a place where they wouldn't fall behind fire department. We're watching them closely, but honestly, it doesn't matter if police or fire come to the table. They always compare themselves to each other. Police customarily compares to fire and fire police. So it's something as administration we anticipate. We know they're going to do it, so we keep a close eye on it.
Okay. Thank you. It seems like I thought it was not there just because I think both departments have relatively small educational accounts for fire. I think it's 164,000 for 59 members, which is not I'm guessing a lot are not taking advantage of the.
Well, no, they are. Just the dollar amounts are low. It's 2,000 for an associate's, 4 for a bachelor's, and 6 for a master's.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I just ask you, not so much on the budget, but just on the regional dispatch, how that's going?
Sure. So we, as we mentioned before, like, it's going to be a slow process. We're still 2 years away from them, taking the first 911 call. One of the challenges that they've had up to this point is trying to secure a location. They've made an offer on some properties that they had one property, the Auburn property that they were looking at. They offered $1 million over asking, and the offer was turned down because the owner didn't want to wait for this July, which is when the state grant was going to become available to pay for it. I don't know, a business deal like I've never seen before. So then they moved to a property, they were eyeballing a property in Charlton. That property just fell through. Just this past Monday, the deputy and I met with the executive director and deputy director of SEMREC. They are back in Auburn looking at another property, and we actually have an administrative and operational board meeting next week to vote as to whether or not we're going to pursue that property. I think they will. I'm very hopeful. The property has a lot of potential, so that would put the center back here in Auburn. Even though we've been back and forth on the building, we haven't lost anything in the timeline because we weren't eligible to, the grant is due on April 15th, money available on July 1. So we haven't lost any time. So providing next week the board's vote to pursue that building, the grant application will get submitted by April 15th, and hopefully we'll be able to bond and secure the building. So we're now part of the administration and operations board. We're meeting regularly, like we're making strides, but again, we're still 2 years away.
I know at one point there was discussion of using Prospect Street for that. That has not, that's been killed, I assume.
It has, and originally when we were looking at the new fire headquarters, we had about 5,000 square feet set aside for a regional center. But what we heard loud and clear, and this is what Chief Mills and I, we not only talked to this committee about it, but we talked to the board. We heard loud and clear that no one is going to join a regional facility that's inside a police station or a fire station. They want it to be an independent, third-party, standalone building. And the reality is the property that they're looking now is 30,000 square feet. So the 5,000 that we were going to potentially offer, it really had no growth potential either. You know, we're looking at potentially in this facility 32 911 consoles. So that was scrapped from the fire station building committee. Once we knew no one was going to come because it was in a fire station, that 5,000 square feet was cut out of the project.
Just gonna have, what?
I got some questions.
I'm just gonna throw, the EMS stipend, that's a new one on here, and I see looks like it's being funded through ambulance receipts, as are a number of other things. Can you give us a status on how our ambulance receipts are to date, and how our, explain a little bit about the insurance process by which we recoup some of those funds?
Sure. Well, currently, the balance in ambulance receipts is $4,232,919.71. Collections
For the last year.
currently last year, current collections $3,081.98.37.
What, I think you used to give us a percentage, did you?
Collection rate?
Yes.
Yeah, the collection rate's about, it's like 85%.
It's 86.
Yep. There's a lot of self-pay, there's more self-pay patients now than really any other time that I've seen. And one of the challenges that we have is the Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement. We're capped at $400. So regardless of what we do on that, we could expend every drug in the drug box, we're getting $400, for that call. So there's several pieces of legislation that we've been advocating for, and we're hoping if the state or the Senate decides to pass a bill anytime soon, we're hoping that legislation gets some wheels, and that will help. It's specifically designed around ensuring that ambulances are paid at a more reasonable rate than the $400 that we're getting now. So our collections are still high. We do have a high payer base that does have insurance, but I certainly see more self-pay enter the conversation within the last several years than we've probably ever seen.
Can you just clarify what self-pay?
So it means that they don't have health insurance. So I think as health insurance, as costs of health insurance go up, I think more and more people don't have health insurance. So when they call for an ambulance, they own the bill 100%. And it's honestly, it's really hard to get collections on bills that, when you're trying to prioritize your bills, the ambulance bill is probably at the bottom of the pile
And I guess that was just going to be my next sort of follow-up on that is the companies that we contract to do this billing work for us. I guess you just said all the good work and reasons why folks should be calling 911 to get people into their homes to save their lives. You certainly wouldn't want any horror stories out there of, hard being pressed via collection agency to collect ambulance bills and then dissuading people from making those future calls because they heard from a neighbor, well, I called once and then I
Yeah,
spent.
This is a conversation that, and I'm sure you've all seen news stories, of ambulance services taking people to collections and all this. One of the things that's extremely important to discern when you're having this conversation is the difference between a private ambulance company and a municipal-based service. Okay, those are two completely different animals. The town of Auburn used to have a private ambulance service back in the day. It was funny, when I was reviewing Board of Selectmen meeting minutes as part of the fire station project, I came across meeting minutes from as early as 1983, where the public was here in this chamber asking the Board of Selectmen to eliminate the private ambulance service and take the responsibility because of the complaints that would come on. And it was almost another 20 years before that actually happened. I've said this publicly before. I'm the first fire chief in Auburn that has never had to work with a private ambulance company, and I'm very happy for that. But I'm also the first fire chief that hasn't had to come in the day after some sort of a tragedy or a large incident and get on the phone with the private ambulance company and say, what the hell happened yesterday? And there's something to be said for that. We have our policies, our write-off policies, and, and I've said this before, right? It's not the best big business practice, right? But I'm not sending elderly people to collections. It's not going to happen. And it doesn't matter who tells me to do it. It's not going to happen. So that's the difference, right? When you see stories on the news about ambulance companies that are chasing a 70-year-old person, sending them to collections for a $2,000 ambulance bill, that's a private ambulance company because they're in it for one reason and one reason only. It's a business, and they're trying to make money. We cannot expect that every person we transport by ambulance is going to be able to pay us. And there are certain circumstances in which we would send somebody to collections, but we are not going to send our vulnerable population who needs to call the ambulance because for certain reasons. It's not how we operate. And, we're fortunate for the revenue we are able to collect, but we're never going to be able to collect 100%, and we're not chasing people who we know are not in a position to pay.
Thank you. It's good to hear. Michael?
I have two questions. The professional item, I'm assuming it's professional development, 5785, that dropped over 140,000 from fiscal 26 to fiscal 27. Is that covered somewhere else? Or it had a huge jump last year and then a real big fall off this year, and so I just want to make sure.
Yeah. So as the chair just mentioned, the EMS stipend, so there was a change in their contract where before they would get every other year they'd get paid out for their required educational hours towards their EMT. That is no longer the case. They've been paid out for that for the old side of the contract. Now the new side moving forward next year is they'll get EMS stipends instead. So money's kind of shifted.
The other question I have, and I feel like I do this a lot, and I'm sorry, there's a column that just doesn't seem to math out to me. The clerical line item is at 122, 166. I'm just looking at the three salaries that I'm assuming make up that line, which is the 2 administrative assistants and the principal clerk on the salary table, and it's higher than that. And it's one of the lines that isn't, I checked, it's one of the lines that isn't marked as paid out of CPE or.
Yep. Yeah, that's just a mistake on there.
It's the
10,000 of that
yeah.
is coming from CPE.
Well, 10,000 also doesn't make sense. So,
Whatever the difference.
It's,
okay, great.
yeah.
Then I think that that's most of my questions. I will say, I think we've asked for this in other budgets where there's like supplemental budgets too. It's really difficult to like look at a budget that has line items that just say like partially funded somewhere else without knowing how much and where it's coming from and what it is. So, from my perspective, like I can completely appreciate that it's difficult, but going forward, I would really love to get that
Do you
information.
not have the totals of the, where,
I'm assuming that if a line is marked with asterisks,
do you have,
that's,
you have totals on the bottom?
I don't.
We can get those.
Yeah.
Ours cuts off here. So you have
Ours
this
cuts off,
funded through the CPE funds, and then every line underneath this.
Okay. So you do have what we have. So
No, I don't have this, is what I'm saying.
First two
We
lines.
have, we
Oh,
have
that's Glenn's. Okay.
this, and then it stops.
Yep. So the CPE, I believe, is 100. I think it's 100,000 of CPE. Oh, I'm sorry, no. So this is CPE, and then these are the totals that come from CPE.
Yeah,
So
so-
we can get you that.
Yeah, we don't have that, and ambulance receipts too. The point I'm trying to make,
Yeah,
it's,
ambulance
it's
receipts on here.
something that we've, awesome.
There's a total of $2.2 million that is coming from ambulance receipts to support this budget, plus the CIP. It's a total of 2.2 million.
Yeah.
So to clarification, the 4 that you said are in ambulance receipts, when this budget moves in, it will be encumbered and that ambulance receipts will drop to 2-point-something million.
Karen, is the 4 something now, is the 2 million for this budget encumbered in that, or is that the balance after this?
That's the balance before that, what we take in over $2 million every year in revenue into the ambulance fund.
It's about $180,000
So right now,
a
we're
month.
using 100% of our receipts, so we're holding steady at a balance of around 4 million.
Out of the 4, if I heard Karen correctly.
So, right, so
Out of
I
the 4.2 million, we're using 2.2, there'll be
Right.
2.2 remaining.
Right, so I'm
effect.
saying the 4 million that we're discussing seems to be a rolling balance.
Correct.
We're taking in 2.2, but we're using about 100% of that.
No, we're taking in
We
3.
did 3.1, just,
Oh, Karen just said we're taking in around
25.
2.
Yes, but I think she was just kind of spitballing a number.
Well, $1 million is a big. I'm
Right,
trying
so
to-
as the deputy reported out, 3.1 million was the collection this year.
For 2026.
5.
5, okay.
And then it was 3,081,000 the year before. So we collect about 3 million annually. So the 4.2 we have now, we'll use 2.2, that'll leave 2.2. And then over this next year, that'll be replenished back up to about 5 million.
Right, the 5, because 4 plus 1 is 5.
Correct.
In the ambulance receipts, it lags from by the time insurance companies get it and pay the bills, and it takes a while before it shows up.
Before we dig in on that more, can we let Mike get?
Yeah, I just want to like clarify, the reason I'm bringing it up is, in the future, and I'm asking this of any budget that has supplemental funding from revolving funds or enterprise funds, it's just really hard to look at a budget and not see the top line number. Like, you guys have a budget of 6.5 million. It's actually more than that. I'm not saying that in a bad way, right? Like, so, but, right? Like, the lines that are on here, that's tax levy, right?
Correct, and I
But it's
just
not the
wanted
true
to,
cost of doing
Yeah,
business.
so that's the point I'm trying to make, is like, we're obviously here because we are taxpayers and we're trying to protect the taxpayer money. But my point is, when I look at a $6.5 million budget, it's actually more than that because ambulance receipts isn't covered here.
No, it is in here. So it's actually, when you're talking about it from a taxpayer perspective, it's a $6.5 million budget, and 2 million of that is covered through
And that makes
supplemental.
even less sense because like
It's
these,
a $4 million budget.
It's a 4 million on the levy.
yeah, so I guess the point I'm trying to make is, one, that's not clear. And two, if it is clear and I'm just dumb, like the numbers don't add up. Because if the reason that it says 122 and not 128 is that some of that is funded out of ambulance receipts, how do we end up getting to 160 or to 6.5 at the end?
I think it's just.
Karen's there, and I want to hear from her because I want to. So
Through
everybody else
the
shut up.
chair, if I could. So we had, and the town manager and I understood that for this year, and that's why we put together this other funding sources, and we did give that copy to everybody. And in here, you can see under the fire department, it lists all of the line items that are covered either by the CPE funds or the ambulance reserves funds. So it's actually the tax levy plus these additional costs.
That's not, so, I'm sorry, I'm doing a very bad job of explaining what I'm trying to ask for, but like, I'm looking at this budget, the one that's blue on top and.
Yep.
Yep. And the numbers that are on this page, are they the total budget or are they the tax levy?
They're the tax levy.
So if they're the tax levy and you guys are saying the budget's 6.5 total even after ambulance receipts, this just doesn't make sense.
No, it's the 6 million tax levy plus the additional 2 million, so you're talking $8 million.
Okay, that was my understanding too, and it seems like it's not you guys' understanding, which does
Is
concern
it
me.
okay if I just come up and show?
Yeah,
you?
no, absolutely. I've seen that. Yeah, it's more about like the actual, because that's department by department, right? Or like funding source by funding source. Yeah, my point is, I'm only looking at the fire department budget when the fire department's here, and I can't actually tell how much money the fire department spends in a given year based on the sheets that are in front of me.
Right,
And I'm not worried about it. Like I trust that the money is going to the right places. It just makes it hard because when I'm looking at something like, hey, it looks like there's $6,000 missing from the clerical item, I genuinely can't tell without asking, hey, is that covered somewhere else? So like in the future, the spreadsheet is great for like a broad perspective, hey, where's the money coming from? But I'm talking about like at the budgetary level, the sewer budget is covered in some ways by retained earnings. I want to understand how much of it is coming from retained earnings and and some departments do a better job than others of tagging it at the bottom, hey, $3,000 comes from sewer retained earnings for the sewer commissioner or whatever it is. But I think I actually said this to you guys a while ago that like or actually no, I said it to police because I was looking, I looked at some state data on like just public service, like specifically public safety budgets. And our town looks like it is underfunding public safety. I strongly suspect that's because $2 million of the budget is coming out of ambulance receipts and therefore isn't being reported in stuff like this. But there's no way for me to know unless I ask the questions. And so,
You're right, and
Yeah.
this is a change obviously
Yep.
under new management. Previous administrations, they actually did it the opposite way. So it's probably even more confusing for this committee to look at it this year because it's different on how it was reported out in previous years.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's probably right. I don't have a memory good enough to remember what last year's budget looked like in detail, but yeah.
I wouldn't mind hearing what Dory wanted to say. Dory. Go ahead. I wanted to hear what you wanted to say, please.
Through the chair, the budget as presented when we first came out, we had mentioned that the additional funding sources were not included and that we would do that for next year. Next year, you will see.
To be clear, I'm not trying to scold anyone or I'm just,
Oh, I just want you to
this
know.
budget is one of the ones that has the biggest
We
proportion
hear
of like
you
outside funding.
loud and clear.
It's just really hard to look at because like multiple salaries are paid out of ambulance receipts, like a huge chunks of the CIP. The CIP is actually easier because it's all there. And,
It's all there.
Yeah. And like, again, I absolutely understand that like the money is getting spent on things that are providing excellent services to the town, and I really appreciate it. I do think it occasionally looks like we're hiding the ball, and I don't think that that's anyone's intent, but the The same people who complain that we spend too much money, when they find out about like the secret $2 million, lose their minds.
Okay.
And like, that's not the point. Like
Through the chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is no secret.
I can't say.
$2 million.
What happened?
So that's why we added additional sheet with the breakout of the funding sources, because it was too late to make those changes at the end. But we'll absolutely do that. It was something that Karen and I had talked about multiple times because we struggled with it. We need to have everything written out and the funding sources deducted on the bottom so you know exactly how it's paid for. So we're all on the same page.
Just a formatting thing for Karen on the, there's a line that,
Yeah, it's
the physical fitness stipend line, the subtotal line shows up on the physical fitness stipend line. So it looks like the physical fitness stipend line is $5.5 million. Even Battalion Chief Brigham is not fit enough to $5.5 million of.
Oh, the subtotal, yeah.
So just something before it goes forward.
This subtotal line is,
it's an Excel special.
Yeah,
Got, like,
it's shifted.
so no, the subtotals.
3 cells that should be 2 cells, and they're.
No, that's a
Yeah, I
wash.
blame these guys.
Those are, all that's being covered by ambulance receipts, so it's a wash.
Oh, there you go.
It is an interesting question, though, because to your point, theoretically, this adds up to $6 million, and this is covering the entire budget, which in fact it can't, because the budget has to be $8 million. And so therefore, the question becomes, well, where is,
Well,
how is it being
Karen clarified that
distributed?
it is 8 million.
Stipend.
Oh, just the total has changed.
I don't know how it created another cell.
I never did the math, obviously.
Yes, I know, I understand. It's just before.
I feel like I really kicked the hornet's nest.
No, it's a good
it's good.
point. I think, Dory, should we update the supplement? Because they don't have, for whatever reason, what we're looking at with all of the different, all of this, they don't have that.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll send them this, and then what's missing in this, which is really the largest piece, is the 1 point whatever, the 2 million of the ambulance receipts. That's not indicated. It says that it's funded through ambulance receipts, but the actual value is not there. So we can send you what the value of the ambulance receipts is, and then.
The 2 includes capital, so it's not completely.
It doesn't have the subtotal by CGE or whatever, but.
Oh, they have this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So I guess this is in your packet that has.
Yeah, it's more just that it's, when it's not all in the same
one
place, and like
place.
sums up here and sums back here, it just doesn't, it's not that we don't have the
Yeah.
information, it's just when it's being presented in 3 different places,
Yep.
it's hard to
Gotcha.
articulate.
Yep, understood.
So Karen, on that sheet, I was looking at it, that's only covering what's in the fire budget, not the CIP, correct? From the ambulance receipts, because that's only about 1.3 million on that. Okay. Okay, just to make sure. Yep, thank you.
Any other questions? I know I had one relative to, last week for DPW, we recommended an additional fleet position, approved. An additional fleet position for DPW last week. But I know there's some discussion relative to fire requesting a position, as well as the possibility of an additional co-op from Bay Path. Are we sort of at a time this presentation was made and the DPW, the change that was made, do we have an additional position now there? I mean, I know there's a dividing line between the fire fleet and the DPW fleet, and I understand there's special certifications and specialty equipment, but I don't want to get too into the weeds of that discussion, but
Yeah, through the chair, DPW now has an additional fleet position, and they also have the intern in fleet. The fire department, on the other hand, had asked for an intern, and that was denied. So they're different departments, and, is that correct, Chief?
Yeah, just to clarify, we asked for a full-time junior fleet mechanic
Yeah.
in addition to maintaining the co-op student that we have now. The co-op student that we have now, we've had him for 2 years. He graduates in May. So our hope is to re-up in that program and get a junior to hopefully work with us for 2 years. So we were hoping to maintain our co-op student and requested a junior fleet mechanic. Neither of those are in this budget.
Would the kid who's graduating become the junior mechanic? In a possible?
I think that he would be eligible to apply, for the position. It would have to be, it wouldn't be a guarantee.
Right, right, but
I mean, I guess my thought, and not necessarily one for tonight, but if there's other places we find it, we spend a lot of money sending our kids out to Bay Path and they get some great education. If there's an opportunity to train the future of mechanics, if there's a way to find a mechanism to ensure that that co-op program continues so that we can sort of grow the future of, mechanics within the town. Again, I don't know if anybody has similar thoughts on that, or?
Well, I'd assume trades are at a premium in general. I would assume that you guys were talking before about how niche some of the work is on the ambulances and the fire trucks. So I would assume that a fire truck specific mechanic is a very niche field to have to fill.
It is. Yep.
Yeah, anytime we
Our
can.
hope would be that if we were to get that junior mechanics position, our hope is that we would poach someone from the dealer that we deal with that has mobile fleet service that comes out for us. Our hope is that we would be able to poach one of those mobile fleet service people to come over to us.
Not bashful, I ask.
So one other random thing I know, the salary table does not include the fleet mechanic, as far as I can tell, and I suspect it's because the budget moved it around.
That is correct. So there was talk going back and forth. We wanted to switch him into our budget. We did, and he's not on the roster. He's still, yeah. Yep.
Which is, again, not a big deal, but just for math purposes, very confusing to me. So I'm not smart enough to keep up. So can I ask, the ask was for 140, the recommendation was 170, or 77. That's the existing position. Did the 140 include both a junior mechanic position and, no, was that just with the junior mechanic position? And is there a line item in the budget for the co-op? Like, how is that getting paid this year?
CPE. So the co-op program for the last 2 years has been funded through CPE.
So could it continue to be funded through that?
We potentially could. We shifted a lot of the way that CPE was done, so it potentially could, yes.
Okay.
Again, as the deputy said in the presentation, the CPE number it's a moving target year to year. So it depends on the type, how many Medicaid patients we took, it's all of that. So we really don't know what we can fund, honestly, CPE, until we get the calculation from the state on what we're going to get. We had 1 year where it was close to 200. It was like, okay, we're able to kind of fund quite a bit out of this. This year,
I think that's another thing that makes it difficult because some of the funds that come into our budget don't come until after we've blessed it.
Right.
And that is why we have the town meeting, because we've got to catch up with the revenue sources that are available with their totals. So it does make the budget process difficult.
When would we have to make a commitment to Bay Path in order to, would it be someone to start September? Or?
Yeah, there's no, it would be September. So we have time. Yeah, we have time.
Any other fire-related questions, comments, concerns?
so it just sounds like we're kind of like, it sounds like everybody wants to hire a mechanic, but we don't have it in the budget.
My thought was ensuring that the co-op continues. I think that's a good program to have. Relative to the mechanic, I feel like there was a discussion, a recommendation for it. We did recommend an additional mechanic. It just doesn't have the public safety certifications behind it for those. And again, I think that's something long-term that needs to be discussed. Same facility on two separate sides of the bays. I don't know that that's always sustainable, and I think they do have some relationship that they work hand in hand. I understand the certifications and the specialties of the vehicles. I just don't know that back-to-back weeks adding in an additional, and I understand that that person's retiring too, so that adds another facet to it that you want to have somebody, an exit, strategy for that person to get them up to speed. But then when they retired, now do you have two salaries on the books recommended because you had to fund the full year of the new person and the person that's potentially retiring in this fiscal year. So I don't really know the answer to that.
I'll just say this, and again, I don't want to, it's getting late, and I don't want to open this can of worms, but I think, in my opinion, and I think John, who's the new fleet supervisor at DPW, he's amazing. He's been very good to us during that period of time when Kenny was out. But the only reason I feel comfortable saying this publicly is because I know if he was sitting here right now, he would say the exact same thing, is the way that he is looking to structure the fleet division within DPW, especially now that he's got the third mechanic and the co-op, he has a really solid plan on how he's going to distribute that labor there. And when I say that he doesn't want anything to do with it, I'm not saying that in a negative way, but he doesn't want anything to do with servicing emergency vehicles, because he will tell you, especially in today's world, the skill sets are completely different. It's, even brakes on a fire truck are not like brakes everything on a fire truck has redundant systems. So even the braking system on a fire truck is completely different than the braking system on a dump truck. So, he had a conversation with the deputy today, and he said, he's like, you guys need a second mechanic over there because of the workload or whatever, but it's not something that the DPW is willing to take on as even trying to cross-train somebody, because I think that's where we get into a lot of problems. There were a lot of years where everybody was wearing a lot of hats, and we had mechanics that were working on different vehicles that didn't necessarily have the right certifications to work on vehicles. And I feel now like, I understand that it seems like a lot that we're growing by mechanics, but I feel like we had such a Band-Aid approach for such a long time. And I feel like, especially in the DPW right now, like the way that they're about to be structured is a really solid system. John's got a really good plan over there, but his plan does not include fire and EMS. So I certainly understand your philosophy and the thinking on it about how it's in two different houses, but it's one. I get all of that. But it is, even the DPW supervisor mechanic will say, I don't want my folks working on that because we don't have the skill set. We don't have the time to get the training. Like, that is a specialty in and of itself, and that's what we need to focus on. So again, it doesn't have to be solved tonight, but the answer, in my opinion, is not to try to find some way again to merge DPW and the fire mechanics together, because in some respects, that's what got us into this situation a long time ago. And I feel like we're just starting to unravel that.
But you're definitely losing the mechanic at the end.
We are losing a mechanic in this
And the
year.
owner mechanic.
Yes, who used to be the senior mechanic at the DPW. He is our EVT. He informed us today that he will be gone within the year. Yes, he's budgeted for the year. Like I said, he just told us today that probably after December.
He
will
could have
be
done it tomorrow, so like.
Looking to retire.
To that point, I just want to say that I'm not a fan of that line right now, because just in owning a new car and watching the transition of what a vehicle is today, we're no longer driving vehicles, we're driving computers. And AI is changing so much that I don't even know how we can invest in a mechanic and have that mechanic keep up to speed in 4 years. So when I see us investing in fleets and I see us investing in vehicles, it concerns me a little that we're moving at such a rapid pace with all of this, that, again, it's one of those things that's just going to grow exponentially fiscally, because AI is not going to be cheap, and they're not making cheap vehicles.
Are you suggesting that we outsource the whole thing?
Not yet. I'm pondering it.
Well, I can tell you right now that the shop rate when we go outside is over $200 an hour for the mechanic to show up. So, and again, you got to remember the history of how we wound up with our own fleet departments is at some point we made a conscious decision that we didn't want to pay the shop rates. And,
Yeah, but what's the cost of getting that all in-house? Because at some point, those.
much less than outsourcing it.
For the moment, it is.
Well, and again, it's something that we need to consider down the road is more regionalization efforts. The town of Foxborough has a regional fleet where they have 4 or 5 fleet mechanics that do the work for 5 agencies. It's a remarkable regional fleet maintenance program. And with our new headquarters coming online that has 2 mechanic bays, I think there's some opportunity there to look at some cost savings. But, Andrew could probably tell you better, but we are getting and again, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what 5-10 years is, right? It's why we constantly have to look. But as of right now, we're paying mechanics, $30 an hour, and we've invested in tools and equipment. Every time that outside vendor shows up, pulls into our driveway, we're at over $200 an hour for him to be there. So
But there's also an expense with having people on the payroll and well, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I don't think we're close to flipping that over. I mean, our in-house mechanics are regularly 50 to 60% less to be in-house than to outsource.
No, but I'm saying that there's variables, there's other moving parts. Technology is just moving at such a pace that we're servicing vehicles, and vehicles they're just becoming, like I said, we're just driving computers. So you don't have a little $500 bang anymore.
Right.
You have a $5,000 bang because half of that little tap, affected the majority of the vehicle. So that's, in itself, it's just something I'm just mentioning it.
I mean, it's definitely worth
something to watch.
investigating.
Right, something to watch. I mean, a simple thing like a little bang is not $500, it's $5,000. Or to go better, it's fully, it's the word I'm looking for when they throw it away.
Total.
Oh, totaled, yeah. Or it's totaled, it's not a $500 fender bender, it's 5,000 or it's.
Insurance issue there, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else to?
Just have a question.
Yes, George.
And there's probably an answer, I just want to know what it is. With the ambulance receipts, say take in 3 million, we're spending 2.2. What's stopping us from using some of that to cover the 75,000 for overtime and the co-op and the mechanic, at least for 1 year, like you said, to learn from the current mechanic before taking that role on? Is there something stopping us from doing that?
I would say that there's nothing stopping us from doing that. I would say that in the 20 years that we've been operating the ambulance, we've always taken a conservative approach on the spending in ambulance receipts. As the manager and Karen will tell you, like I guard this like it's my own bank account. We always want to make sure that we have some flexibility in there in the event that, God forbid, we were to total an ambulance or something, and then we had to unexpectedly, buy an ambulance for $600,000. We try to always maintain about $1 million in there for like an unforeseen. There is nothing stopping us to whittling that down to the penny. The problem when you do that, much like Patrick mentioned earlier, ambulance receipts is it's predictable and it's unpredictable. We have trends that show us what we're going to collect monthly and what we're going to get on an annual basis, but that can fluctuate, depending on what insurance companies do and dropping in payments. So we're fortunate that we're always able to tap that for a couple of million within the budget. I would just be very hesitant to try to whittle that down beyond that, because I think it is smart to have some sort of a buffer for the unexpected.
The ambulance, when you build I guess we're outsourcing the billing, but do they charge, is the charges different based on the insurer? So
The charges are not different. No, the charges are not different on the insurer. We have ambulance rates, so we bill at a basic life support level, and then an ALS 1 and an ALS 2. An ALS 2 would be, high priority call, monitor, drugs, intubation, like pretty much where emptying, whatever's in the truck on you would be an ALS 2. It's not cheap. I mean, some of those bills can be $2,500, $2,700 for an ALS level 2 transport. So regardless of what you have for insurance, whether you have insurance or not, you're getting an invoice for that ALS 2 service. Let's say it's $2,500. Now, certain insurance carriers, then depending on what your deductible may be, it may be $1,000 out of pocket for somebody before the insurance picks up the balance. Maybe they don't have health insurance at all. If it's a Medicaid patient, we're getting $400. We can argue until we're blue in the face. We're not getting more than $400. So there's a lot of variables that go into that, but the rate doesn't change based on the carrier. Our bill doesn't change based on the carrier. Depending on who you have for a carrier is what they'll pay.
I just have a question relative to, and we've had some discussions this year about free cash policies and how much money we retain in some of these accounts. Do we have policies for any of these other accounts? Ambulance receipts being the one we're talking about. Do we have policies? I mean, I'm sort of always surprised when it comes back as to how much is in there. And you talked, it's a variable account based on what we've taken in for the year, but percentages or how much we carry over. I mean, I know you're keeping a good eye on it, but I didn't know if it's some of those larger accounts should have some sort of policy that we only retain, a percentage of the department's budget, or a percentage for how much we carry over, or I don't know, Karen, do you want to speak to, or town manager? Patrick, do you want to?
Well, I just wanted to mention, and I think the chief has mentioned it in the past, and when they did develop the ambulatory, there are certain things that they will use it for and they will not use it for. So I think and Karen will address it, but I think that there are, for the ambulance receipts, I think there was some, at least when Mr. Kasanovich was the CFO, I think he had stated that, there are some things that we won't use ambulance receipts for. But Karen can elaborate. Go ahead, Karen.
There's no official policies regarding the ambulance receipts about balances or what they're used for. But as we talked about before, like we had said, that, it seems like the amount of revenue that comes in per year is kind of what goes out and maybe builds up the fund a little bit. So we can look at that when we're looking at changing our policies and updating our policies.
I just want to clarify one thing. The ambulance appropriations account, it does restrict what you can use it for by vote at town meeting. So the ambulance appropriations account can only fund things within the fire rescue department. So
That's where I was headed.
it can't be used to renovate a baseball field or
Right,
something like that.
right.
So it has to be a
And
department-specific
Packagug is
use.
similar, that account, right? I mean, that's solely to keep the golf course whole.
That's correct.
Right, that's where I was heading.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is, I have one other question. This is kind of a loaded question. Because I took a ride in the ambulance not that long ago. And your guy stayed with me for a fair amount of time, which, in retrospect, I recognized. But I also got very good service at the hospital in terms of, getting an MRI, whatever they did, CAT scan. Is the service better because the ambulance is there generically? Like if you're a paid if you're a paid ambulance, would they just drop you off and book? Whereas our guys are sort of making sure the patient is okay.
So I'll just say this. The deputy and I have both worked for private ambulance companies, right? And again, there is a difference between, a lot of people like to refer to the municipality as a business. We are not a business. We're a service industry, okay? If we were a business, we would be a failing business in about 2 weeks, right? Because our goal is not to make money. That is the goal of a private ambulance service. And that is how they operate on a daily basis. For a private ambulance company to make money, you have to do transports. In order to do a certain amount of transports, you have to spend as little time in certain cases. So in a private ambulance, how quick can you drop that patient off? How quick can you get on the road to go get another patient, right? What you're talking about is customer service. What you're talking about is caring for the residents of our community, where we're not just going to drop you in a hallway and hope that somebody comes talk to you, right? We talk about this, the deputy just whispered in my ear, right? This is our culture. We talk about this all the time. If you are not advocating for your patient, I don't know what you're doing, right? You should be advocating for your patients. And if that means you have to stick around in the hallway for an extra 30 or 40 minutes to get the attention of somebody, I can tell you how many times we have literally chased down nurses and doctors and said, will somebody look at this strip? Like, this person is having a STEMI. They need to be in the cath lab now. And emergency rooms can get chaotic, and people can get glossed over very quickly. And if you don't have a paramedic crew that cares about their job, cares about their patients, and has that advocacy for a patient, things can go sideways quick. So I'm glad to hear of your case, and I'm glad to hear that you had a good, but it's not a surprise to me, because this is what our folks do every single day, is treat and transport and advocate for our patients. And if that means we gotta every now and then get into a scuff with a doctor or a nurse because they're not listening to it, we'll do that. And we'll field the complaint after. And there have been many times where after we fielded that complaint, we said, well, I guess we could have avoided this whole thing if you just listened to them 40 minutes earlier. You know, so there's a tremendous amount of advocacy that goes in that. And I'm glad to hear that you had that experience, but I'm not surprised.
It's good to have it too.
On that note, I'm going to make a motion to recommend the town manager's recommended fire budget.
Would that be the $6,500,000?
$6,556,115.
I would like to second that.
Trevor has seconded that. Michael has made the initial motion. Any further discussion on this one? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Good, thank you. CIP, while we've got you here?
Sure.
Just,
We've got emergency management.
Oh, I'm sorry, we got emergency management. Well,
Let's not rush through.
no, I was rushing. This is. Emergency management, do you want to just give a quick highlight? This one is pretty,
So we're covering for the emergency management director who had to work tonight, and I'll be honest with you, I don't have their budget in front of me. I think it's pretty much level funded with the exception of some generator increases.
Correct.
You can just get it. Disregard all my cross-outs.
which job is Mr. Otteson working tonight?
He is in the emergency room at Leominster Hospital tonight.
So I guess the only question I have is, this budget notes that it includes school department generator maintenance. Is that new? Has it always included generator maintenance for the schools?
It has not.
Okay.
So we are having a bit of an issue that we are going to try to address this year, and hopefully next year we'll be presenting a different generator plan. This is another line item that has been historically underfunded. So we have 11 large generators at different facilities. So this building has a large generator, fire station, police, the schools. So there's a total of 11 building-related generators. And then we probably have 20 smaller generators that are portable in nature that can go around. This line item for many, many years has been like level funded at like $5,000. And the fire mechanic, our EVT, gets paid overtime out of this generator account to service the generators. The problem is that all of the generators, they're not necessarily on a regular schedule the way that they should be, because he's so tied up with his regular job that, you know, he tries to get out there and he tries to, you know, get it done, but it's not getting done to the level that it needs to get done. And when you're talking about servicing, he's doing filter changes, oil, things like that. These generators really need to be load tested. So you can start a generator and you can run that thing for an hour a week. It doesn't necessarily mean that when you put a load on it, that when the power goes down and you actually put the load on that generator to actually power it, it doesn't mean it's going to work, right? So these generators have to be load tested as well. We've been working with Joe Fahey, retired facilities director from the schools. He's still working part-time for the town doing some energy management stuff, and He just solicited quotes for an outside generator company on what it would cost to load test our large generators. We're not necessarily looking to load test the small ones, but we're working on that quote. It wasn't ready to be presented this year. There is an article on the May town meeting to replace the high school generator. I think that's somewhere around 200,000, Dory? 350? Oh, 315, I'm sorry. That's a 40-year-old generator. That generator was 20 years old when they moved it to the new high school. So that has had some problems that kind of, and they were, quite honestly, the school department was looking to us to kind of help with some of the maintenance of that and the repairs. We just didn't have it with, $5,000. It was a significant repair that was like over 10 grand or whatever it was. But one of the other things that we're looking to do, I think, for next year is to identify what the cost is, and I'll just use the fire station as an example. All right, we have 2 generators. What is it going to cost on an annual basis to do the services on those, plus a load test, and whatever that value is, put that value in the fire rescue budget. Right now, all of the generator stuff sits in emergency management, and then it kind of gets doled from there. I think the plan and what makes more sense, right, and when we talk about kind of just understanding where the money's going, we want to put the maintenance of those generators in the budgets of the physical plants where they are. So we increased it to 15 only because we're not doing the load testing. We're not necessarily getting, so we know that we have some work to do there. But I think we're going to wind up refining sort of what the generator program is going to look like in the future, and I think it will look much different next year when it's presented to you.
The schools are emergency shelters, should they be?
So the high school is the emergency shelter, and they have significant problems with the generator right now. So that generator does need to be, we can't even get
No,
parts.
I just wanted to bring that up in that
Yeah.
it makes sense being here. It doesn't necessarily, like we say, they should be pushed over to the
Yeah,
schools.
yeah.
This is, if the lights go out, this is,
Yep.
if we had to activate a shelter, it would be the high school. So
Right now, this $15,000 does not reflect the actual cost of what it costs to load test and fully service these generators on an annual basis. So we're refining that number this year.
Thanks. Any additional questions on emergency management?
Motion to recommend.
Second.
I have a motion to recommend and a second to recommend the town manager's $25,650 budget. Any questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Sure.
Just anything to discuss in case you're not back when we actually CIPs? Highlights for us to-
Yeah, on the CIP, we're replacing deputy chief's vehicle. It's a replacement of an ambulance, and then $50,000 for facility improvements at Auburn Street. As far as for the ambulance, when we order the ambulances, they take 3 years to come in at this point, so. Any questions?
Any questions, Andy?
The only thing, Chief, last year you brought up the monopolistic nature of the vehicles and the fire trucks in general. Has there been any movement on that? You said, I think you had mentioned going to lobby a little bit in Washington about that. Has there been any movement, positive or in that regard?
So we are exploring at the moment, several class action lawsuits have been filed. We will most likely, it's not official yet, but we will most likely be signing on to one of those class action lawsuits. The timeframes have not changed much, but I think that there is a tremendous amount of pressure from Capitol Hill on the fire truck industry, largely a group called the Rev Group, who has that monopoly. They appeared before Congress maybe about 6 months ago. And if you did not see it, if you Google, go to YouTube and just type in congressional hearing, Rev Group, fire truck, you'll see some pretty amazing scolding from our national delegation on the fire truck industry. It's unbelievable what's going on. So I think there is a lot of political pressure. There's a lot of eyes on it. And we will most likely be signing on to a class action lawsuit against one of the manufacturers that we work with.
Any additional questions? Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
It's always good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the guest appearance of the battalion chief in the back.
Was he here when you made the comment about?
Of course he was.
Okay, I didn't.
Okay, so we don't, that's it for our budgets this evening. We don't have any minutes to approve tonight. Next meeting, we have school department, we have Bay Path, we have the Norfolk Aggie, Youth Commission budget, and they'll have, I think they're going to be providing us with the warrant articles. Just, yeah. Anything that anybody's looking for next week's, any requests for next week's meeting?
Dinner?
Do we know if Bay Path or Norfolk Ag will have a representative?
Karen, do you know, we'll have representatives from everybody for Bay Path and? They're confirmed. Thank you. Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved. I can't say.
Then I say that.
Gavel, yeah.
Adjourned.